On a day-to-day basis, the communications you're having with people, you're not really getting to really know that. Even like friends you grew up with, like how long did it take? How many years did it take before you really got to know that person? Sat down, had an in-depth conversation.
We had one day, and we really know you guys. But like, I like to think that everyone has like a world inside their head, and like we're out here trying to go to Mars and like go to like other countries, but like there's worlds inside of all of us, and then we explore all of those different perspectives.
Totally. We all have different life experiences, and it's crazy.
You can learn something from everyone.
Yeah,
you really can.
Sure.
That's the biggest thing, is you can always learn something from someone. Like everybody can teach you something.
Yeah, like have that attitude and carry that with you, and just be open to having conversations with people. People that are different from you. People are the same.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
ask questions.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome all to episode 39 of BINDLISM, a philosophy to a self-sufficient lifestyle. This episode, we interviewed Zach Murphy and Olivia Graziano. They are a photographer and a videographer, respectively, and teamed up together to create the travel wedding photo and film company, Birds of Passage. Alongside other projects, such as Zach's Faces of Places project, we get to delve into the world of two people who get to do what most of us only dream about, to travel the world for work. These two have been to so many countries and have talked to so many people all over the world. It's truly incredible. And are currently somewhere in Asia on a traveling vacation. This episode is really inspiring and motivational, and I don't think you're going to want to miss this, especially if you're someone who has thought about wanting to create a means of income that allows you to travel. I think that there's some really great insight on how you can get that to happen, and we're just happy that we're able to share this with you. Thanks again to Zach and Olivia for coming on the show. Really excited to share your story with everyone. Let's just get right into it. This is episode 39 with Zach Murphy and Olivia Graziano. We hope you enjoy. We're here with Zach and Olivia. Why don't you guys introduce both of yourselves, kind of give a gist of what you just said, but to the people.
Me first?
You're first.
All right,
Ladies
put me
first.
on the spot. So I'm Olivia. I'm a freelance filmmaker. I've kind of recently transitioned into working away from working 9 to 5 to being self-employed. And so my business partner here's Zach. We run our own destination and elopement wedding videography and photography company. And also I do a lot of humanitarian and nonprofit work on the side. He does some other photography work too. He has like his own project. I'll let him kind of ramble on that later. But we both are nomadic, and I live in a van full time. And yeah, I feel like that sums up me pretty much.
What was the wedding photography company? What's it? Yeah.
So our wedding videography company is called Birds of Passage.
Okay. So that's what you guys come at. You have common ground in that.
Yeah, it's a collaboration. Everything else is pretty separate right now. Yeah.
Yeah, but we're moving. I mean, we actually just got engaged a couple months ago, and we're planning the wedding and everything. So ideally, Olivia's passion for travel and filmmaking and my passion for travel and photography, we're trying to get more and more projects that we can do together, moving forward. So we're doing it as a couple.
It's a learning process, and it always will be. Sure. So.
Yeah, and it's a strange transition because I was running my own photography company for the last 3 or 4 years called Zam Photo. Let me jump back to the introduction. I am a Syracuse native. I grew up in Liverpool, not too far from these guys, even though we didn't really cross paths much. Right. But so I'm from the Syracuse area. Went to school out in Ohio. Have then lived the nomadic lifestyle for the last 5 years, traveling all around the world. And now we find ourselves kind of based in upstate New York because that's where our family is. So when we're home, it's kind of here in upstate New York. So we love Syracuse. We're believers in the upstate New York region. But we also believe in like traveling the world and kind of bringing those experiences home, whether it's like through Instagram, through video creation. We're trying to just like expose people to different cultural ways of living life. And yeah, so that's one of our driving forces for why we travel. But yeah, so Zam Photo, Radiance Film Co. merged together to become Birds of Passage Collective. And yeah, so that's kind of the brand we fall under now.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm curious, how did you two meet each other in the first place?
It's a good question.
So I was working on a project in Kenya. And so Zach was born in Kenya. He's been back and forth like periodically throughout his life. And
so you moved from Kenya to Syracuse?
Yeah, but my parents were like Syracuse natives. They were just working at a school over there on a short-term basis. So yeah, I grew up more in Syracuse, but as Olivia said, I've been back and forth a couple times, but mostly Syracuse, yeah.
Yeah. So I reached out to a friend. I was kind of going by myself to work on a project. Like I was sent out there with the previous company that I was working for in DC. So they sent me there, and I knew I was going to be there for a long time, and I wouldn't know anyone. So I wanted to see if there was some like expat or some like somebody else I could meet with while I was there to like show me around or something. And I reached out to my friend, and she connected me with Zach, thinking that he lived there at the time, but he actually didn't. He was like right before I got there, but with the timing didn't quite work out. So we were kind of like mutual friends on social media, and then just didn't really connect. But then we realized that I was in Buffalo, like, or my family was in Buffalo. Like, we both came home for Christmas, ended up meeting just more. It was meant to be more of like a business, like, networking kind of thing. But then we ended up like.
Yeah, we connect. We talked for like. we talked for like 4 or 5 hours. Yeah, and that was the day after Christmas a couple of years ago, and we met in Rochester. So let me just to go back. I was living in Kenya in 2017 for about 6 months, and so that's why our mutual friend kind of told Olivia, like, hey, this guy, he lives there. He might be able to help you get connected with some of the, creative people here there in Nairobi, Kenya. But by the time she was there for the project, I had actually moved on, and I was in Southeast Asia for a little bit. So we connected on Instagram, but we didn't actually get to meet in Africa.
But then it wasn't. So.
But then it's just kind of ironic that even though we were supposed to meet in Kenya, we actually live just 2 hours away from each other. And so we were like, oh, let's hang out.
Weird,
So that's kind of how it came around. It was. And we got to tell you, it's been super convenient. Even for today, we just drove in from Buffalo, and it's only like 2 hours down the road. So
it's not bad.
Visiting both the families has been really easy. So it's been cool.
That's awesome.
That's how we met. So
the stars are aligning.
Right. It does sound like it was meant to be.
It's fun.
So, what is it like living in Kenya? I'm just curious. I've never been to Africa.
Right.
I don't think you have either.
Right.
So
I lived there for about 6 months, again, as like a couple of years ago. Beyond that, it was kind of more, I was there as a kid, like under my parents, So one of the reasons I wanted to move back there for a short period of time was to answer this question, because I only kind of like knew from living there as a kid. So I wanted to go back as an adult and kind of like live in Nairobi and experience it a little bit. It is an interesting place. It's tough. Like there's extreme poverty. Obviously, that's kind of what people might picture Africa, people living in huts and stuff like that. And there certainly is that out in the bush. But Nairobi, I got to say, is a pretty, not modern, but it's an up-and-coming metropolitan city. There's skyscrapers, there's like lots of cars, lots of traffic, there's very modern restaurants, but then there's next to this...
decent health care, too. Like people from other areas in Africa, if they need to go to a hospital, they'll come to like Kenya or South Africa. So it's like one of the more developed areas.
And infrastructure is developing, you can get around. There's always a lot of construction, and a lot of the buses are like jam-packed with people, but there's modernities. There's like tons of shopping centers, some that are like nicer than the ones here.
Wow.
But again, what's the dichotomy there is like right behind these like really nice shopping centers will be the slums, where 1 million people will live in a square mile with no clean water and no no
electricity.
Yeah, like no
nothing,
infrastructure
like
essentially. Just
built
living
up
in
off the
kind
ground.
of makeshift
That was the video.
huts.
One of the videos I sent
Yeah.
you was Kibera. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's that contrast that's constantly hitting you in the face. Like
Yeah,
you'll
it's
be
crazy.
eating like, a nice burger, like, and out the window you'll see some guy walking by with no shoes, like begging on the side of the street. And yeah, that's what it's like to live in Nairobi. And one of the things that maybe we'll get to talk about here later on the podcast is, that's one thing that hits you when you start traveling more and more is, how blessed we are here in
Definitely.
the States. And it's not, we were talking about this a little bit beforehand too, but it almost inspired us to live that minimalist lifestyle. Because we've seen how little people can live on,
Right.
and it's we don't want to compare ourselves to that, but it almost inspires us in some ways that all this extra noise that's surrounding us here in like a first world society is really not necessary to live a fulfilling life.
It made me like really double think like what I actually need and like what's more important. Like one thing that I would say in a really positive light about, I can't speak to other like African countries, but like specifically in Kenya, I found like they really value community and family time way more than business or a lot of like superficial things.
Even
So
in
I
the
think-
metropolitan areas.
Yes,
For the most part,
definitely. Like people will show up like an hour late to a business meeting because they had to go home and do something, or they had to be
Wow.
with their family, or there's a funeral or something going on. Like they always prioritize other people, the people that they're with, like first, rather than like other business meetings and stuff. So sometimes that can be like seem like outwardly really frustrating, but I think ultimately it makes them like there's definitely like real joy that I see there, like amongst all the hardships and stuff that you see in places like that. There's a lot of joy and happiness.
And a lot of even the term you might be familiar with, even if you haven't been to Africa, but African time is kind of, here everything's by a clock, but there it's more, like Olivia was saying, it's more social based. Like if I run into you at the supermarket, you might then invite me home to your house for
Yeah.
tea.
Right. So you're not like, I gotta go.
on.
No one
Like,
ever says that.
There's no such thing as like a clock there. It's just kind of more, they go with the
So they like legitimately don't even like have watches or anything.
They do. They have like every.
Just
the
to
one
get
thing
a
is,
general reference
this will
of
throw
what's
you off. Like you'll be in the
Yeah.
slum and someone will bring out an iPhone or something.
Yeah,
There's just
yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
everyone has phones these days.
Yeah,
I
everyone
remember
has
that.
phones. That's
Even
that
when I
would
was a
be
kid,
something.
being out in the middle of the bush, like these Maasai bushmen
They
who like
even
live in like
Maasai, like they have their
phones, have,
tribal
like, a
wear
phone,
and
not
stuff
an
on. They have like
iPhone,
a
right.
phone. It's so funny to see that.
they'll be
Yeah.
chatting away on the phone out like
They have Facebook
barefoot.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Like I'm friends with some like Maasai warriors on
Whoa.
Facebook. It's so funny.
Yeah, so the world's like definitely changing. Like, everything's so
Yeah.
I think people have I think there's a common misconception that technology hasn't made it there.
Right.
In very like impoverished areas, but it's like technology is at least I don't know, like
In
4G
fact-
or whatever, that stuff can get around.
In fact,
Yeah.
one thing that you'll notice when you go to a lot of like Asian countries, obviously there's maybe a bit of even a stereotype there, but a lot of Asian countries are very like technologically advanced or, very tech savvy, and the government I think subsidizes a lot of the cost of information technology because it's so advantageous for a society to everyone have information at your fingertips that it's just going to
Just to
advance
learn- for
knowledge
learning and stuff. Yeah.
Here I feel like sometimes even internet like data plans on our phone are so expensive,
know.
whereas I'll go and buy a SIM card in like Egypt and it's like $2
$2
gigs
for 10 gigs of data or something.
yeah,
It's
so
crazy.
they make
cheap.
information.
Yeah.
And this isn't an overarching statement, but
Most countries.
some of the places I've been, information is really cheap to access because I think it's subsidized because I think it's advantageous for a society to have access to
Yeah.
information.
Also, we live in United States where everything is cost something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everyone cares about the bottom dollar here, as opposed to like the progression of humankind. I feel like to our own detriment. So
Well, and you think of just even our minimum wage and our standard of living here, people have to get paid wages that are acceptable to make a living, to put food on the table, whereas wages aren't as high in some of those other countries because you just don't need as much money to put food on the table.
Right.
Yeah.
They're just used to a completely different way of living.
Yeah, it's a different scale. So.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah.
So to backtrack a little bit, you guys were talking about minimalism. So what exactly does minimalism mean to you guys?
I think to sum it up in like one and all statement, it's really just like only adding things to your life that add value. Like,
okay.
So trying to live as meaningfully as possible with less.
With less, yeah. Like really cutting down your life. I think it should be less about like eliminating things from your life. Oh, that's necessary. Like when you're like transitioning from like a normal lifestyle to like becoming a minimalist, like you have to get rid of things. But instead of like looking at like, oh, I have to throw this out, you should be like, okay, what here in my closet, what have I worn in the past 2 weeks? Everything else should just be like thrown away or like donated or recycled or something, like because somebody else may be able to use it better than you can. Like you really, like my closet, because I do live in a very small van, like I probably have maybe like 10 outfits that I kind of cycle through, and they're like well made, like quality things, and I value those more, and I wear them all the time. So I like am blessed by the value that's in those clothing and
not taking things for granted.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely makes you appreciate. Yeah, like if you have a bunch of things, then you don't maybe necessarily you're not able to just physically appreciate all of it because there's so much excess.
Yeah, that's true. So one way I've kind of looked at minimalism is there's the materialistic minimalism of just not owning a lot of things. And that kind of coincides with our ability to be nomadic. I mean, I lived out of a backpack for about 5 years. So my material possessions had to fit within like 40 liters, 40-liter bag. So for the longest time, like it was just very only what I needed, and all weight and space was just, I had to be so strategic about how I looked at it. Now even living, more a semi-nomadic lifestyle, thinking even just financially, how can I minimize my financial output, right? And, that comes in many different ways, but I just think through every purchase. And it coincides with the material minimalism because I can go to the mall. This is very opposite of how I used to be, especially in high school growing up. I would go to the mall, and if I didn't leave the mall without buying anything, I was like depressed because I was I need to buy something because it was just like this buy consumer mentality. But now I go to the mall and I'm not tempted by a thing. I try to keep my wardrobe simple. I try to keep just so many, like my shoes simple. I try to keep any sort of like gadgets simple. I just want to have a very like simple look to things. And then recently I've been working on digital minimalism. The distractions of our phone are so great. And I remember going back to like when the phone and iPads were first coming out, I wanted all the little toys and all the gadgets, and I wanted all the free apps. My phone would just be full of apps and music. And now I have like 5 songs on my phone. I just like the songs I really like. I have very few apps, and I'm just trying to, minimize the amount of time I'm wasting on fluff, and so that all comes down to just enjoying, the time that you have and kind of focusing on the things that are a priority.
Yeah, for sure. How did you get into minimalism, like both of you? Like what was the first time that you had to, whether it was like because you had to or because you like chose to?
It was more of like
I can start if you want.
Yeah, I'll let you start.
So
because my answer is
again, through high school, college, I feel like I was very materialistic. I loved all the gadgets. I would go on Amazon and just like buy a bunch of crap that I didn't really need, and it would show up 2 days later and be like, all right, sweet, and like have fun with it for a couple days. Then shortly after I graduated from college, I actually moved to Australia, and I lived there for a year. Okay. And I remembered like, all right, I'm moving to Australia. Like, I'd moved around a couple times before, and I had this like huge suitcase. It was like almost like a duffel bag, you know, like a pretty big, you could fit a body in it. And it was like all my stuff, like a bunch of possessions. And as soon as I got to Australia, I met all these other backpackers and all these other world travelers that were living out of like very small backpacks, like things that you could carry on your back and like literally walk with if you needed. And I was like dragging my body bag across the streets of Sydney, like going from hostel to hostel. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like I can't, I'm not mobile. Like I don't really need any of this stuff. Like I was very inspired by these other backpackers that I met that had traveled to, you know, tons of different countries and were just floating around from place to place. And that very much appealed to me. I was like, and I remember the switch went off right there. I was sitting like at the Sydney Opera House bar with a couple new hostel mates that I just met and hearing all their stories and seeing the few things that they owned, but the stories and experiences that they had. And that's when it kind of hit me that I was like, I don't really want things, I want experiences.
Got it.
And that kind of was the mindset shift where I was like, all right, I went through and I like got rid of half of my things from the body bag. I bought a new backpack at a sporting goods store, and I was ready to jet set across the world, like whenever I needed to. It was just a very simple existence, but very fulfilling with like the experiences and the memories. And I think part of that is being a photographer. A lot of like, I don't need souvenirs and stuff. My pictures are my memories and my souvenirs. And,
we like never buy anything when we go to a country except for like food experiences, and then we take photos. We never like buy items, or rarely do.
And it makes sense. Like, okay, now that's an added thing you have to carry around with you.
It's like, do I really want this extra pound of a like statue of the Roman Colosseum in my backpack for 2 months?
Yeah.
No.
Especially if you're on the move all the time, like what's the point of having something that's gonna end up on a shelf? Yeah, you know,
all that like anything for decoration. Like if it doesn't have a function or a purpose, we usually wouldn't buy it. Like it has to be, I mean, ideally like multifunctional, well made, and like have a purpose. For us to like actually buy it.
It just makes you more mindful that you like think before you buy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you can find, like, I'm sure you've found things like that at times, but it probably just makes traveling more fun because you spend less time looking in stores and stuff. You're just experiencing
or even
more.
We still definitely look in stores, but it's that fun part of like looking in a store for inspiration rather than a product. You know, like we actually have like since being in New York, we've gone to the mall a couple times, and we're inspired by things, but we're not tempted to buy anything.
Like I feel like we're professional window shoppers. I think that's like,
mastered the art of window shopping.
For the experience.
For the experience.
And inspiration though, like you'll
true, like fashion design,
or like I don't know, interesting things. Even for like the future, we have like a mental list of if we ever have a house of things that we'll want. But we don't need it now. So
do you ever? Before you get into how you got into it, do you ever switch up your like, say you have like a set amount of clothes, do you ever be like, you know what, it's time to just swap some stuff out and then get rid of stuff I've been wearing like constantly?
I wear my clothes into the ground, like when they're like ripped and like they need to be replaced. I feel like, no, it's just when they need to be replaced, right?
Yeah, the jeans I'm wearing right now, this is a podcast, so you can't see, maybe you can see on that phone, but
they're black H&M jeans.
There's like 2 holes in this pocket, so I know to put my money, my change in this pocket. But I think it is about time to upgrade to pants that have 2 working pockets. But I'm saying we wear it to the ground.
Or it gives you a purpose to gain the experience to learn how to sew.
Yeah,
there you go.
True.
Yeah,
I might just take them and sew them.
You may as well. They still look great. Like, there's nothing wrong with them.
This is a dirty little secret too. But we, I learned this backpacking too, and traveling the world. You know, there's just this societal norm that you have to wear a new shirt every day. Or
hate it. Hate it.
And you're backpacking, and like you're just seeing new people every day. They
so
don't
it
know
doesn't
what
matter.
You're just like doing your own thing. And then like I was thinking back, if I had a normal 9-to-5 job back home where like I worked with the same employees every day, they'd probably be pretty grossed out by this. But
I know.
I'm like totally cool with just wearing the same.
And there's
thing
a different
every day.
like standard with backpackers. Like everyone's gonna be dirty and no one just cares. It's like a little bit more relaxed too, so there's no one to impress.
Yeah, plus you're outside most of the time, I would assume.
Yes.
So you're not like in a confined space where smell. I'm like, not that you're not like, keeping up with hygiene, but like, yes.
Just bring some cologne.
Not like we're in a confined space or anything.
Right here. Yeah.
I love it.
So funny.
Okay, so what's your claim to minimalism?
Okay, so ironically, it's really, really similar to his story, actually. I feel like traveling and meeting backpackers and like learning about that whole like hidden world really opened me up to minimalism too. So I went to Paris and London. That was like my first time ever being out of the country, and I went by myself. I was like 19 maybe. Wow. I flew to Paris. I stayed in a hostel. I didn't know what a hostel was. Like, it was a whole new world. And I had a giant suitcase, like a roller one. And I just remember like the clutter and like trying to like carry that thing around when you're like on the move. I was like, this is not sustainable. You just can't do it. And everyone else in the hostel had like backpacks. And I remember meeting like one guy, and he saved up like, I think $10,000 or something, and he was traveling for like a year. And I was like, wait, you can survive on $10,000 in a year? Like, how is that possible? And I just like I was just mind blown that you could travel the world that cheaply. And I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions of traveling is like that it's expensive. It's really, obviously, like you have to make sacrifices, but is definitely possible. In fact, it is way cheaper to travel than to live here in the U.S. And that, I feel like that was like the light bulb moment in my head when it like just like lit up, and I was like, wait a second, like I don't actually need a whole closet. Like I can travel with like 3 shirts and 2 pants and like put everything I need in a backpack and survive off that for a whole year and like be totally fine. Like you don't really need all this stuff. Like I remember I packed like a hairdryer my first time, and I didn't use it the whole time. I just realized that I could just like let my hair dry and it would be fine. Like no one, and there's so much like clutter in your life that you realize you don't need. And I think taking that step of like traveling was just how I was able to realize it.
So, I mean, a big part of this is like being financially stable as well. So you hit on it a little bit with saying that guy only had $10,000 for the whole year. Yeah. So now that you guys had the lived experience of that, what is that like for you financially?
Like traveling and being financially stable.
Like you're living in a van right now.
Yeah.
And how are you able to financially sustain that?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a really good question. That's something that both of us have like wrestled with for years, trying to get to the point where we could freelance.
And you guys are financially separate, or
we're separate right now. Yeah.
I can start you off here. So back when I was first backpacking, when I first moved to Australia, I like worked a job. Like I worked really hard for about 6 or 7 months and saved up a good chunk of money, paid off all my student loans, and then what I've done is then I used that chunk of money to kind of like live off of for the next 2 or 3 years. And we also, being photographers and filmmakers, we've exchanged services and gotten like little gigs along the way that have helped paid for our way. So like, for instance, with me, I've worked for like a lot of different travel companies throughout Europe. So after I finished Australia, I went to New Zealand, and then I went to Europe, and I was just exchanging services and getting little stipends to keep me like afloat for a long time. And given those like stipends and the exchange of services, I was able to survive for a couple of years off of the chunk of change that I'd saved up, and lived even when I was making the money, I was living very frugally, because every time I went out to eat, I was thinking, wait, that's like a night hostel. That's another night that I could survive. And so having that mindset of budget traveling and knowing that hostels and accommodations are only like $8 or $10 in some parts of the world.
Sometimes cheaper. Sometimes like $3.
I mean, it depends. There's just different regions, and I mean, Europe is more expensive, but there's some places. But like just in general, I like say it was $10, $15. Like I knew if I go out to eat tonight, that's like one less day I can buy a bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then But yeah, so that was just something I wanted to jump in while you were thinking.
Yeah.
So wait, so with your experience, before you quit your day job and you went to travel, you saved up, you like allotted up a bank of money before going in. And did you already have those gigs giving you money from the start?
No, not really. After I worked for a while, I traveled for about a month just for fun, and then I just started finding gigs around the world. I can't think of some of the resources off the top of my mind, but there were lots of blogs and lots of websites that other people's experiences were able to inspire me and give me resources. Someone who worked for a travel company in the Greek islands and throughout Europe, I applied for the same job that he did. So I was scouring the internet and looking for inspiration from other travelers that had worked their way around the world.
So it could have very well failed then.
It could have, yeah. But I mean, I was never in a spot where I was not going to be able to survive because I had that bank of money. And I think that bank of money, that...
Yeah, having a big emergency
a big emergency was something to fall back on
really
that allowed me to...
Figure it out.
Yeah.
It allowed me to push myself a little bit further, knowing I had a fail-safe. Mm-hmm. If I was just trying to survive, I probably would have chickened out near the beginning, but having that fail-safe... Yeah, having that fail-safe the whole time and having a supportive... family back home that I was never do or die. It was I had insured myself essentially.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a good idea.
And that was enough for a flight back home? Did you already have a flight back home?
No, it was just a one-way ticket.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And these different trips, there were times where I came back home and then went back for different gigs. It was a very all over the place thing. So I think I was in Australia for a year, and then I think I came back for a month or two, and then I went traveling for a couple months, and then so it was a little bit back and forth. Yeah. It wasn't it wasn't 5 years of just straight travel. Yeah. It was probably in that 5 years, there was probably about 6 months that I'd been home altogether.
Yeah. And you haven't really
visit family and stuff like that.
You haven't really worked a 9 to 5 since you were basically in Australia. That was 4 or 5 years ago, right?
Essentially.
It was a long he hasn't really he's just been
I've done
freelancing
lots of
doing
gigs,
different things to I don't know.
How old are you guys?
I'm 25.
29 or 28.
Okay.
Almost.
Close in age.
So my story is, I feel like my transition from working a 9 to 5 to becoming a freelancer was I feel like I was pretty lucky. Some people have, maybe it was a little bit harder. I just with how everything worked out with my former job and just the freelancing and stuff. It was a lot of work to get to the point where I could freelance. So just a little background. I was working for a documentary company in DC. It was very competitive work environment, very... my boss was really great. It was honestly a great, amazing job. I got paid to literally
Did you go to
travel.
school for film? Or how did you get that
Yes,
job?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so ironically, my boss went to the school and he just somehow found me through the alumni network. And then I ended up moving to DC. I'd never been there. It was really fast. 1 month I was I had been looking for a job for so long. And then all of a sudden I got picked up and was moving from Colorado to DC and it happened in within a month. And so I moved to DC not knowing a single person. And it was, I think, the week I moved there, I was wow, this is I loved the job and it almost in a way was everything I thought I wanted. But pretty quickly I realized that I was wow, this isn't for me. I don't know if I want to live here and come into work every day. And I wanted to be self-employed and I knew that pretty early on. But I didn't know how to exactly get from A to B.
It's always the crux, isn't it?
And it's it's so much hard work and so much, I don't know. It's just a lot of confusion, I think, to get from point A to B. And each person's path is different. So I can't give any magical advice. I can kind of just share my story. So on the side, I was working, normal 40 hours. And what I ended up doing, I wanted to start the wedding filmmaking business on the side. So, when I met Zach, I I started getting some like wedding jobs through him, and then I would like go online and like try to like I would like go after my clients instead of like them coming to me. I would like go find people that were engaged and like reach out to them. I was like very like every day. I mean, I was probably working like 60 hours a week. Like I would go to my normal job and then go to the gym or something, or go out like for dinner, and then I would come back to the co-working space and work until like midnight on my own business stuff. And I did that like every day for months, and eventually like it paid off. I remember like that was like, this wasn't even that long ago. This was like January, February, March, when I was like really like working hard and grinding. And then I like remember looking at my calendar for like this summer. I was like, whoa, I'm like so booked. Like I don't even need this job anymore. So.
And that's all on wedding photography?
Wedding videography. And then also I had another job in the summer that was with a bigger client. It was like one big project. I'm still working on it now. That was like in July. So I had that, and then I had the wedding videography also to like fill in my schedule. And I was like, I'm ready to do this. So I like talked with my boss and kind of transitioned out of the work. I said, all right, I'm going to work for you until like June 30th, and then I'm going to transition out. And he was like very supportive of it too. And I think his kind of business was changing up. So like we're on good terms. And I actually did the project that we did in Kenya. He was on the trip too, but not as my boss, as like he was the like podcast director and producer of like the film that we were working on. And I was like the cinematographer. So it was like a really...
So you were like coworkers at that point.
We were coworkers basically, which was kind of funny, but it was good to like transition out. Like I remember the week before I quit my job, I got the call from the company that I got that big project, and I was like so excited that I like called Zach. I was like, Zach, I got it. Like it was like just so affirming to know that I'm like quitting my job. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna get any more paychecks until like I have these like projects scheduled. And then that one just like filled in the puzzle piece, and it was just so like affirming to have that. Just to like
validate you.
Yes. Yeah. So.
And I'm assuming this is gonna be a pretty big like portfolio.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was a big client.
Are you able to disclaim?
I can say who it was, I think. I mean, I sent you the video. I think it's fine. I'll figure it out, and then we can cut it out later. It was USAID. Okay. It's a government organization. Yeah. So it was like, I felt like I was like so far out of my league, honestly. Like it was a big client to be working for.
It's like a documentary film?
Yeah, it was the one about the women with disabilities and the Kibera Slum, that one. It was such an amazing project to work for.
So you said it's not done yet.
No, we're still working on it. So there's like 7 videos that we have been working on, and like 40 podcasts. Oh, wow. So yeah, it was a big project. It's been like, I've been working on that since July, August, September, and November.
So is the organization themselves posting these as well? Using them?
Yes, they're using them on their website, and also like internally and to get like funding and stuff, like to show to their donors. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's gonna open up a lot of doors.
Yes, I really hope so. Yeah.
So you've been out of Kenya for how long? Since that project?
So that was also the second time I'd been back to Kenya. The first one was like 2 years ago, and I came back for this project.
Where you guys met? Was it 2 years ago?
Yeah. So, this I wanted to also kind of tie in this, because this was kind of what Zach was mentioning about how we'll do like travel projects, and because we have the like time freedom to do whatever we want or like work remotely. Yeah. So I was on site in Kenya filming, and then after that to edit it, I can be anywhere in the world editing these videos
while getting paid by them.
By them. So like their flight was like, they flew me from like Nairobi to Frankfurt to back to the US, and I just like didn't take the second flight. I just like stayed in Germany and like went Germany, Switzerland, Italy for like a month and a half after. Wow. Like I just like hung out and was like working on the projects and stuff while I was there. As long as you have like good Wi-Fi to like upload things, you just got to meet the deadlines. You definitely have to like pay attention to
organized.
be organized, like know the time differences for like meeting calls and stuff. Like you have to be like on top of that stuff.
Like willy-nilly. Like,
yeah. Yeah, you can't like. It's almost weird because you're in like travel mode and it's not vacation. Like when you're like a digital nomad, like you are working and you have to like be very disciplined about it and like manage your activities around your work. Because you have the freedom of schedule, sometimes you like have to just like be like, all right, I'm going to work on it this day. I'm going to sit down for 8 hours and not do anything. I'm just going to be at a coffee shop here, just working on whatever I need to do and to get it done for, their deadlines. So
I think that brings up another good thing. Good topic to talk about is the misconception of the idea of like when you become a digital nomad, it's like pure freedom.
Yeah, it's not.
It's like a vacation all the time, but it's like complete opposite.
Yeah.
Like you have to be truly passionate.
It's very funny that like all these people who have made it and then want to sell their course or whatever on how to become the next, travel digital nomad, and it's all about like, oh, I just chill at these hotels and like all this shit.
Yeah,
it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It is. No, I remember like 2 years ago, I'm like, how are these people doing this? It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me touch on that a little bit though, because one thing that we are striving for in our nomadic lifestyle is location independence. Because I mean, being a nomad isn't any good if you're like tied down to a certain job location
or a house or anything.
Yeah, and
payments. Payments.
So, can we talk about Birds of Passage a little bit?
Yeah,
now?
Of course.
Yeah, so Birds of Passage. So we've started Birds of Passage just about a year ago. Like January 4th was our first wedding. Like we'd been shooting weddings together, but we started this new kind of like adventurous wedding brand, and we wanted to start doing like more elopements and more destination weddings. Because what had been happening,
finding people who already planned on going somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And because of our nature, and this all, like even the wedding photography thing kind of happened because on Instagram, on social media, on Facebook, like some of my friends had started seeing, that I was a photographer working for all these different travel companies. And so when they started getting married, they start thinking, who's going to be my photographer? And people started reaching out, and I wasn't even a wedding photographer at the time. But I was like, yeah, we can make that work. And I started slowly doing it.
We kind of accidentally fell into it, like finding
and so I was doing friends' weddings, and then I remember I got an inquiry from like a complete stranger to like photograph their wedding, and like up to that point I'd probably shot like 6 friends' weddings.
Did you have like a website or something?
No, I was gonna so like I don't know how they even found me. Maybe like a friend I had photographed was like, hey, like I think they like DM'd me on Facebook or something. I was like, I don't even have a website. So I said, before I even answered their message, I went and created a website, put up my portfolio, put some basic about and contact information. I was like, if people are like, that was the real moment of like, these are strangers, people I don't know, asking me and trusting me to document their special day. And if I'm going to move forward this, like, I got to treat it like an actual business and like start making this a thing. And it was also intimidating, speaking of our lifestyle of freedom and being able to kind of pick and choose our own gigs. Now my gigs are choosing me a little bit. Like, I mean, I don't choose when people get married and when they ask. So now all of a sudden my schedule is dictated by the clients and the weddings that want us to photograph and video them. So it was kind of this shift of like time independence to then like starting up this business and kind of creating, like we still have a lot of location independence. Like Olivia said, once we photograph a wedding, we're then able to work remotely. We can edit,
that's a good point.
Anywhere. Yeah. And one thing even too that you were talking about, because especially within the photography business, that the nature of the photography business we have, like we can edit at night, we can edit in the morning, we can edit while watching a TV show. Like there's a lot of freedom in it, but there's extreme discipline that comes in because you have deadlines, you have people counting on you for certain things. Yeah. And so many times it really turns into crunch time where you have to say no to things. Like we're so used to like doing everything we want, and then all of a sudden we're having to discipline ourselves to, we have to work for 4 hours this morning before we go do that thing with our friends. And suddenly we're,
Sometimes our weekends are taken up too, whereas like most people have their weekends off, like during the summer, fall, spring, like that's when we're busiest.
Completely different.
Yeah, so that's like one downside to it.
But we've been and then where this coincides with our
sacrifices.
travel business is we've started doing like a lot of destination weddings. So we started doing weddings, and then people saw that we were travel photographers. You're a wedding photographer. Hey, I'm having my wedding in Jamaica. You want to come? And so all of a sudden we're doing like 3 or 4 or 5 destination weddings a year, and we're getting to travel all over the world.
So do they cover your travel fees for that, or you have to cover
For the most part,
Okay.
sometimes we'll kind of come up with compromises, because we might be able to get like a travel gig. Like when I went over to Finland
like
for
do
a
2
wedding earlier
projects
this
in one
year,
or
I was able
something.
to then, do some other photography projects there. And so we were able to come up with compromises. But for the most part, people's expectation is when they're, because they understand that it's like our full-time job, it's how we make a living, that, they obviously want us to make an income on a job like that. So,
And
so
I
a lot of
think
people are understanding of that.
one thing I'd add to that too, we have the advantage of, say, like for most people, it would be kind of like unrealistic for them to like go somewhere and not be reimbursed for travel because they have rent to pay at home, they have a mortgage, they have other monthly payments, like which we don't have that. So it's almost like a little bit more, or like we don't have to, our flights don't have, like we don't have to leave Friday night after work and come back on Sunday night to be back in time for work. Like we have we can fly in on Wednesday because it's the
You
cheapest,
can fly on the cheaper
and leave on
days,
Thursday.
which is
We can
so
fly on the
ideal.
cheaper days,
It's
which
so
is
nice.
so important. Like if you have that flexibility, like you can fly for half as cheap as.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I mean, shit. We're going on this
Yeah.
trip to Seattle, and we're flying out on a Thursday and then coming back on a Wednesday.
And that's
Yeah.
And
those are like
we
the
saved
cheapest
so
times.
much money.
I'm
Yeah.
sure you did.
It was
Yeah.
incredible. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this is sick. I could
Yeah, the
travel way
airport will
more
be
often if I
empty.
do that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Just hearing your guys' stories, there's a lot of things that have to line up really perfectly for you to be able to pull this thing off. Even when, like you were saying, it comes down to where you're living in a van. But not only that, but it's also the skill set that you choose to do the work that you're doing overseas. It's like if you were, let's say, something that, like a carpenter, for instance, just solely by the difference in skill set, it's not gonna allow someone to be able to work
Yeah.
location independent.
It's
That's
true.
true.
Like sometimes I sit here like thinking everything that I've done and like everything that I have scheduled up ahead, and I never really like had a whole plan of it or anything, but I do think of that. I'm really grateful sometimes to think of how transferable my skills are. Like I can work for like I did like when I was traveling through Scandinavia, I had someone reach out to me and they wanted me to do corporate headshots for them. And like I can shoot.
Yeah.
I shot a bunch of lawyers in Norway,
yeah.
and then I shot a wedding in Finland, and then I did some like travel photography for my own personal business, and like I was able to kind of, just as long as I have the camera, we can, and even just I guess like one thing I was thinking too, our equipment. I mean, film, there's a little bit more equipment involved, but like I can fit most of my stuff in like a backpack. And speaking of that, just like mobility, I'm able to kind of like move around. We were even talking about this with one of the wedding DJs recently. Like it's not as feasible for them to do destination weddings because they have speakers and
they have a lot
lights and
more
everything.
big
Whereas
equipment,
like someone like
soundboard.
us, we just like throw all of our gear in a backpack and we're ready to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so, it's been a really cool thing. And what you were just mentioning, like it's a cool blessing that we have that we can like, we never like scripted it, but it's been a really cool way to like kind of merge everything that we love. Yeah.
And it is hardworking you guys are, and how disciplined you have to be able to do this. It opens up, like that would be probably the con, like limiting your freedom and being able to just do whatever you want all the time. And you're on these great destinations and you're hindered from like doing the vacation style thing.
Actually, really good point. And what's actually been fun in our careers a little bit, and not that we want to like pigeonhole ourselves in one thing, but as you noticed or a little bit from this story, I was working for a lot of travel companies near the beginning, and it's very like they give you an itinerary and they cart you around from place to place, and you don't have the freedom. Like, yeah, you're on the Greek islands, but you're kind of like, all right, you have to go and photograph this restaurant. You have to go and photograph these people jumping off a yacht. You have to go, like, go to this vineyard. And, like, it's very regimented.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And so now one thing that we've been enjoying is, like, a lot of our business and a lot of our income is coming from, doing weddings and doing, like, those kind of things. And then we have the independence to then, after we shoot the wedding, we can go and actually like enjoy what we want to enjoy.
Yeah. It's like a 1 day commitment.
Yeah, and then we have to manage our editing load. But like even in a couple of weeks, we're going to go to Asia for a little bit, and it's mostly for fun, and it's mostly for like our own enjoyment. Some of our passion projects, Faces of Places, we'll have to talk about that later. But we're still working on things for ourselves, but no one's giving us an itinerary anymore. And like we kind of
so fun.
Yeah, we have to be in certain places for weddings that we shoot and stuff like that. But again, we're gonna have a couple weeks off where we are not.
Yeah.
We're not like itemized. Yeah.
And these opportunities wouldn't be able to have. You wouldn't be able to experience these opportunities if it wasn't for the work that you're in.
Exactly. Yeah. We like to think of it as kind of like a seasonal job. Weddings happen mostly from like May to November, December a little bit, and then we have that nice winter time when it's cold and rainy and snowy here, and we're like, we're snowbirds. So then we have a couple months to kind of kick it wherever we want. So,
yeah, like I don't have another projects aligned in the U.S. until May 30th of next year. Like I have a couple things in like India and Turkey or something like later in the winter and spring, but like otherwise, like at this point, and we've built up like enough, like we always have, like being a freelancer, we always have a large amount of savings. Like, we're like stockpiling all of our wedding money and making sure that we manage that very well, are good stewards of that.
You're able, with that, are you able to save for retirement, quote unquote?
Yes, that is a great question. So while I was working my other job, I was putting into my retirement. I stopped since as of like June. I haven't been contributing towards it because I'm going to like pay off my debt very aggressively, like my school debt first. Ideally be done with that in like a year or two. And then after that, I want to like pretty heavily contribute towards my retirement. But like Zach's been dripping into his.
Well, being we're basically just self-employed.
Yeah.
And so with that, there's some like aspects that, like health insurance you have to figure out on your own. There's like, retirement, but there's,
you guys do like a Roth IRA?
Roth IRA.
Yeah.
Do you do that all within the United States?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like almost, well, funny you say that because I used to have accounts like in Kenya and Australia and like all these crazy things, but I've since like brought it all over to the States. Like, because when I was working in Australia, I had like a superannuation there. Okay. So I had to like transfer that over and stuff. But right now, like a lot of my financial stuff is taken care of in the States, but it was complicated for a bit when you're working overseas.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But a lot of even like the travel companies we work for are either U.S. based or they'll like pay us in U.S. dollars for the most part. So we're not dealing with a lot of international currency.
Them have been. I don't think I've ever worked for.
Yeah.
I've never been paid abroad. Like I've always been U.S. companies that work or have offices abroad.
Yep.
Yeah.
But as freelancers, we have to kind of think through some of those things ourselves because it's
definitely have to be on top of your finances for sure.
Yeah,
and like,
it's a huge part of it.
Taxes are really hard, or you just have to be prepared, and paying quarterly and taking care of things like
all these things that people don't think about.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. That
I have so many write-offs. I was just like preparing some of my taxes like last week. I had like so many write-offs because like every time I go to a coffee shop and work, that's a write-off. Every time like I travel for work, I'm doing a project, everything on that whole trip is a write-off too. So there's so many receipts that you have to like add up and keep really good track of. I use Expensify. That's an app where you just take a photo and it like automatically adds up the totals. So I highly recommend that. It's free for freelance taxes. Yeah, so.
And as far as like financial infrastructure, do you guys have to do like visa work? I know like some people, they come for like summer camps and they're from like, let's say Spain. They have to get a visa to be able to get paid. Do you guys have to
not
do
really, because again, a lot of our people are American clients. Like even when we go to like Jamaica or Belize or Finland, like people are paying us in US dollars.
Yes, but
They're American
for
clients.
certain countries, like when I was like for Kenya, I had to apply for a business visa. And for like Cambodia, I also had to apply for a business visa there.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, but it's not like the kind that you're thinking about that's like really hard to get, because it's like so you know how like say if a Canadian citizen or we wanted to go to Canada and work, we'd have to like, but if you're like working something that's more than like a contract job, or if it's like, I believe if you're working with like a US based company, I don't know. I actually don't know how it works, but I thought that if you're like working for a US based company abroad and it's on business, but you're not getting paid by like a Cambodia, like if Cambodian money is not going out of the country, then it's a lot more simpler. If it's that, I know there's like much more. It's much more complicated after that, but
like when I worked in Australia, I had to get like
that.
an Australian working visa.
Yeah,
that was
that's
for like a
different.
year-long thing.
It's probably easier because it's only for a certain amount of time.
Yeah,
it's not like
you're
you're planning on living there for
right, and it is
Yeah.
intentionally very limited. You can talk about Faces of Places if you want.
Yeah. So I looked into that a little bit. I see like there's like a book involved with this.
Yeah,
too.
so I've published 4 books. So part of the whole traveling for the last 5 years, every year I was publishing a book, and it's under the brand Faces of Places, facesofplacesproject.com. And the idea is I was on a volunteer trip for a year, and we went to South America, Asia, Africa. And one thing that struck me, I was a photographer. I was just kind of taking pictures of people for fun, for culture, to show people. I was very fascinated with languages, foods, the way people dressed. But what I noticed after a couple countries I'd traveled to, I was like, wow, these people are all the same, you know, even though they might have different colored skin, they have different clothing, you know, they eat different foods, they're working different jobs, speak different languages. There's this underlying humanity that we all share. You know, everyone's trying to survive and provide for their family, and you know, there's so much similarity, even just like the structure, like eyes, nose, a mouth, and ears, and just personality, and a handshake, and like a hug. There were like all these like universal things that we all kind of shared in the human race. And I was like, how can I, as a photographer, like how can I make this noticeable? So I wanted to publish a book and start an Instagram where if you go on Instagram, you're just scrolling and you're seeing faces. You're seeing face after face after face. And I'm hoping that you can see those similarities that we all share as humans, but appreciate the cultural differences and realize that, you know, we're not all that different. Like, and the purpose of the book and the project is to kind of, make that humanity known and you know, kind of give us further understanding for cultures that are different from us. I mean, even Syracuse here, it's a cultural melting pot. You know, we have refugees coming in from all areas, and it's so easy to look at someone on the street who's wearing clothing you're not used to or speaking a different language and think they're so different. And I want us to just kind of see the humanity underneath it all and kind of have compassion and an understanding for where that person's coming from and kind of the human experience that they're having, and be able to like relate to them more than look at the differences.
So with your craft, how are you able to capture that?
So the book is laid out in, each book has like 9 to 11 chapters, and each chapter is a country. And as you flip through, it's almost like, it's like 8 by 11 book. So it's like a pretty like coffee table kind of book. And as you're flipping through it, all the faces are on this page. And so as you're flipping through it, you get that same experience that you get strolling on Instagram, where you're just seeing face after face looking back at you. You're seeing the eyes, but you're also seeing like people of different occupations. Like someone might be serving tea at a market. Someone might be like working their like the rice fields in Thailand. And one thing that's important to me about Faces of Places is on the opposing page from the portrait section, there's going to be a landscape photo that's going to be from that
Like the
country that they're in.
environment that they're in.
And so you're going to be able to see like the landscape or the cityscape to give you a sense of place where that person comes from too. Because it's one thing to see like a portrait, but then you need like the larger picture to kind of understand their growing up and like their day-to-day experience, a context of where they come from and kind of what shapes that person. It's not a scientific study, but like realizing that people who are born to rice farmers in like the rural areas of Thailand, they farm rice. Like that's kind of their occupation that they're born into, and that's kind of determines a little bit. It's a comment on how the landscape and the region kind of can dictate the occupation of a person, and kind of like it kind of forms that person's life a little bit. Again, not an exact science to it, but just it's a commentary on like how that culture, someone who grows up in like maybe like a Buddhist region might become Buddhist by that influence, or someone who like in India wears the colorful saris and is used to like these festivals, that's kind of like a part of them. And I want to draw in that landscape, the architecture, the region, the context to kind of tell the whole story of it.
And it's no words, just pictures.
There are captions because a lot of people wanted to know like a little bit more about the person, because every portrait I've taken is like it's a very personal story to me too. Like I had a real human interaction with that person. And a lot of like the landscapes, a lot of people might look at that like skyline or cityscape and be like, oh, I wonder where that city is. And the pages themselves are very clean with no words, but there's like a caption section, almost like an index where you can go and look at page like 18. It was, Ho Chi Minh, Vietnam or something like that. But yeah, so that's kind of like the layout of the book. And the idea is, so I've published 4 books covering 40 countries. I'm working on my 5th book now that, the idea is when I finish this book, hopefully late next year, I kind of took a year off I was publishing one every year for Christmas time. It was just too much to do every year. So I'm taking a year off, and hopefully next year I'll be publishing the 5th, which will then have 50 countries represented under the project, which if you're thinking there's about 200 countries in the world, is about a fourth of the countries represented. And who knows, I'd like to do more, but it's been such a time-consuming project, and it's mostly passion-driven, so there's not a lot of funding for it right now. I'm just kind of self-funding the project.
Is there financial gain from this project at all?
Not personally. I mean, I sell the books, but that barely covers the cost of getting there and such like that. So it's not really profitable at this point. That's why I call it a passion project.
Do you want it to be, or is it more just something that you personally want to get out there just for the purpose of it?
More the story is more important to me, and kind of like the message that it brings. Obviously I'm very passionate about it. I would love it if that was like my full-time job, going around the world and documenting culture. I think that's one of the things that makes me feel most alive. But I don't necessarily see it becoming like a full-time job by any means. I am looking for and seeking ways to get sponsorship or grants for these kind of projects through different organizations. But besides that, it's not. Yeah, we'll see where it goes.
I think it's interesting too, because like if say the end goal is to get all the countries, just for example, I'm sure there's a decent amount of those countries that never get people just coming in to really document like what's there and what the identity of that people really looks like.
Yeah,
you look at like something like the Olympics, and you see all these countries you've never heard of before, and people are just like, I don't know.
Yeah,
they don't think too deep about it.
That's been the fun part. Is like the first couple books, not that they were like well-known countries, but I find myself, now that I've gone to some of the more obvious ones, now I'm like seeking out some of like the lesser known ones. And one example is last year I was just like trying to fill out like my 10th country, and I'm like looking at a map, I'm trying to, and every book kind of has a overarching theme. So last book, I focused on just island nations. So I was looking for the way that being surrounded by water affected a culture. And I did like Japan, I did like Indonesia, I did Iceland, I did like Cuba.
Oh yeah.
So I did a lot of these countries that some people have heard of. And then I was looking in the Middle East. I like wanted something like from the Middle East, and I saw Bahrain, and I hardly knew what Bahrain was myself. But it's just like this tiny country just north of the UAE, and I was like, I'm gonna go there. I bought a flight there, and like it was like I went to go to Bahrain, and it was like so funny because like usually my trips are very like they flow nicely, and this was just like I flew to Bahrain to go to Bahrain, and it was really cool, and it was very mind opening, and some of the architecture there, some of the people I met, I just had never seen or heard of before in my life, and it was very interesting because it's like a very oil-rich small country. So there's, you hear of Dubai, and you hear of Doha and Qatar, but I don't know. I just never heard. I can't even think of what was the name of the capital of Bahrain. I can't even think of it now. But it's just like a country or a city that you never really hear of. It's bugging me. What's the name of it? I can't even think of it. But the capital city of Bahrain was just. It was really, really interesting.
African.
It's like
Middle Eastern.
It's like right next to Saudi Arabia. Yeah,
it has a lot of
island. It's in the
Indian and like Bangladesh immigrants, but it is very Arab in
it's small,
customs
right?
and cultures.
Very small. Like Rhode Island.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny. But yeah, it had a very interesting skyline and really
I know.
shiny
When he
buildings.
said he was going to Bahrain, I was like, where the F is that? And like I zoom in on the map and I was like, oh, that's where it is.
So that's just one example of like I'm going to like more and more obscure places.
Yeah.
So now with these, with your passion project, are you able to tie in the wedding photography destinations with that
a little
work
bit.
too?
So this past year, I went to Finland for a wedding, and
Belize.
I did Norway as a country. So I documented the people of Norway, the cultures of Norway. So I tacked on like an extra week and a half going around Norway, getting some of the most dramatic landscapes I've seen. Then last year I went to Belize, and Belize will be in my next book. Like pretty much, most of the wedding countries I go to for destination weddings, if possible, I'll either add.
You're not paying for the flights out there.
Yeah. Since someone's already covering my flight, that helps like fund the project a little bit. I'll either add on that country or like I'll look for like a neighboring country that's interesting and try to like.
It's like compounding travel.
It definitely makes you think about travel a lot different than a traditional traveler.
It's been so fun. So just to give you other idea with the other book, so the last one I called Surrounded by the Sea because they were all island nations. 2 years ago, I did Circle the Sahara. So I did like a lot of sub-Saharan, Middle East, and like Northern Africa. So it's like how every country that's like touched by the Sahara Desert, how that kind of affects them. And then I did Beyond the Silk Road. So I did a Silk Road route from Beijing, China, all the way to Lisbon, Portugal, without ever taking an airplane. So I just took overland travel. Documenting the people of like China, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. Kyrgyzstan, that was a fun one of like I never really heard of Kyrgyzstan before. Beautiful country. Azerbaijan, Georgia, Turkey. I think I did like Greece, Spain, Italy, Portugal, or something like that. But it kind of, as you're looking at a map and you kind of cross Asia into Europe, you got to see this transition of the people groups and everything. So that's it. So usually I try to find an overarching theme.
That's got to be a very sobering experience to just like see that transition.
Yeah, it is
almost
very
like a painting.
interesting. And you just even China itself is so diverse. Right. And you did get to just see like the way culture, dress, religion, food, it kind of like almost made sense, like it would like merge into each other. Right. And it was like really like you'd be in one city and like half of it, you kind of like see the transformation as you're going across that line. It's like
Buddhism to like Islam and then to like Christianity, Orthodox and then Christianity. It's like very like interesting, the religions.
Because it's like the East and West like mentality.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and then you get to Turkey and it's right where it meets. And then, it was a very, very cool
See that I never thought about it that way, but like I think for someone from the United States, obviously everyone's in the same country here in the United States, but like so going across the country you don't see like a huge change in culture really. Maybe subtle things, but like there, because they're all separate countries, it's just interesting because I think as an American, you go travel. Oh, I'm from New York. I'm going to China. It's like such a drastic difference. But if you're traveling across, you're just seeing it like meld into the next thing, and
that's exactly
it's not
right.
as nearly as dramatic, probably.
Yeah. It was very cool to, and the languages, too. It's just.
Do you hear the language like flow into the next one, or some of them just like, oh, that's out of left field?
Sometimes you would. I mean, like, I'm no language expert, but there's weird pockets of different languages that you would see. Like, I mean, when you get to Central Asia, some of those countries were part of the USSR or influence. So all of a sudden there was like Russian-speaking people like in Kazakhstan and stuff. So and you just came, and then you would go into like a very Arab-sounding language, and then you go up to Georgia, and it's almost this completely different, like, isolated language, and like even the written script is unlike any other language I've ever seen. And then you go to Turkey, and then you go across Europe, and there's some similarities there, but. Again, I'm no expert, but you would kind of see this like transition. Sometimes it would make sense, and sometimes it would be out from left field just because of the way history is kind of like the occupancy of different countries has kind of like influenced those places. And then like all of a sudden you'll find like Italian food in like Ethiopia or something, and you're like, oh, where'd that come from? But then you look into the history, and you're like, oh, there was an Italian occupancy here back in like the early 1900s or something, and then you're like, oh, okay, kind of makes sense. And so that's that's one of the great things about traveling is you just like pick up all these little either historical tidbits or cultural things, and it just gives you this bigger, wider view of everything, and it gives you a better appreciation for everything.
So
how do you go about the language barrier in travel? Because I'm sure there's some places that don't have English speaking.
Yeah, most don't. I'd say honestly, like hand motions, facial expressions, trying to learn some basic phrases, like very basic phrases. I always try to do that, like when I go to a new place. And if you really do need to communicate something that's complicated, I usually will do like Google Translate, which is so helpful.
Yeah.
I remember one time when we were in like Brazil, I had like my leg was like infected with something, and I was trying to like ask. I went to this pharmacy, and she like was like just had no idea what I was trying to say. So I was trying to like ask her for disinfectant, like to clean out the cut, and she finally like I was showing her the cut, and she was like didn't really know what to do, so I explained it with Google Translate, and she was able to like, she's like, oh, okay. And then she like showed me and then gave it to me because I couldn't read the stuff that was on the label. Like, there's too much to like try and translate. So, yeah.
One thing I will say is like speaking English as a first language is one of the, just things like so many people take it for granted. But
of course.
I mean, English is very widely spoken across the world as a second language. So a lot of places you'll be surprised where you can get by, but there definitely are some places that are just an utter challenge. I remember China is like, if you can picture Chinese in your mind, but there's like, think about being in a subway, like usually, even if you're in a different country like Italy, but you can at least read the letters, then you can phonetically pronounce it, even if it doesn't make
like Asian language
grammatical
really
sense to you, but you can't read Chinese. You can't phonetically be like, oh, I need to go to Xinhuang Station, because you don't even know how to pronounce the symbols, and then you don't know how to match it up, and it's like
you have to like study it or like
thing.
Compare it. Yeah, it's really tough.
But so I would. Honestly, it's one of the funnest parts for me, or most fun parts of traveling. It is a challenge, and I mean, here comes your, you need time to enjoy this. Like if you were like in a rush to get to the airport to catch your flight, you'd be like, oh, great.
Like allow extra time for important things.
Sometimes
like
it's
that.
Fun. Like it's like you need to get a train to this town, and I would, I'd in the bus or the train station, people don't speak English, and so I would look for like a young person who might be in university who might know a little
might
bit of English. And I'm like,
yeah.
hey, can you write down Hing Huang Qing Station in Chinese characters for me so I can give this to the train person so she can get me the right ticket to the place? And it was, so there were times where it was almost like a fun, like it was like a real life obstacle course or like a skate
Because
room
it's
or
like
something.
if you
You're like,
don't figure it out,
Yeah.
you're not going where you need to go.
yeah. There's definitely a couple
Yeah.
times. Oh, this was a funny one. I got on like the bus like going the wrong way or something. I think this was like in Romania too, so I could actually like read the language there, but I didn't understand it. But somehow I got on the bus to Bucharest instead of Budapest, which are like complete opposite directions. And fortunately, the bus guy came through checking tickets like right as the bus was like leaving town. He's like,
man.
You're on the wrong bus. I'm like, oh no. So I got off the bus and like had to run back to the bus station and catch the right bus. But so there's actually, given how hard it is to communicate, I'm surprised how little hiccups we have had with like not knowing the language. But you just got to be extra diligent,
Flexible
making
with
sure
your
you're doing the right
time.
thing. And
Yeah.
I always have there's this app called Maps.me.
It's so helpful.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly
So helpful.
like if I'm ever in a taxi or like whatever, I have this really good geographical sense like in my brain. I just like happen to know like north, south, east, west well, just judging by the sun or like having studied a map before. And like I'm always checking like if I'm on a train and I'm like I'm not 100% sure I got on the right one, I like check and make sure we're leaving the station in the right way or something like that.
Yeah.
That's really helpful, just so that you don't end up on the wrong side of the country or whatever.
Yeah, that's probably not a good problem to have.
But,
For sure.
so yeah, thank God for technology.
Do you feel that because both of you have traveled so much, your like maturity level is higher than say someone who hasn't traveled that much? Like thinking about needing to have your shit together all the time, right? And like really dealing with constant challenges throughout different countries.
Do you have an answer, Liv? I can start.
I
us.
think like
I can start us then.
yeah, I'll let you start.
So, well, maturity is an interesting word because I feel like it's all kind of relative, or I mean, there is some subjective like being mature or not immature, right? But I think it's just, again, giving me like this better understanding and better appreciation. Like what we were even talking about at the beginning, where we would see abject poverty like on the side of the streets, I think that just gives us a better compassion for even like maybe the homeless people we see here or people of different cultures. Even my Face of the Places project we were talking about earlier, like seeing someone of a different culture, of a different race, or like I almost feel more akin to them. I'm like, I want to almost like I have a maybe deeper compassion and that might lead to a mature empathy
like a
is a
deeper
great
sense
word
of empathy,
for
I think,
it,
for
is you like
people.
have an understanding of people of different backgrounds and cultures and religions and and you almost like feel for them a little bit more because you've been to their place. And again, I don't know if that's maturity, but I feel like some people can be either very ignorant to that or...
You just have more perspective.
It gives you a better perspective. That's a really good word that we just kind of... like.
So maybe it's that,
way. We see things in a different way and not that you can't see things in like a good way if you haven't traveled. Like we don't want to say that at all, but one of my favorite quotes is like... you might need to help me out with it if you know it. But like travel, if you've never traveled, it's like only reading like one page in like a whole book, right? So if you think of the world as like a book and like America's like one page, there's a whole book of like information and knowledge and culture out there. And that's what kept me traveling for the longest time is like I just wanted to absorb all of that information just so I had a more well-rounded worldview. Like I could just kind of like see things in a different perspective. Do you have an answer there for the maturity?
I think you did a good job answering that one.
That was a good answer.
I have more. I don't know. I can always like ramble about traveling, just like anything. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like what really keeps me traveling is like the culture and the people. Those are like the things that, like, I really like to go. Like, I don't like going to Europe as much. I want to go somewhere like really different and like exotic and
Yeah.
like where I don't understand the language and is like maybe not as comfortable. Like just everything is very like India or China or something like that. I'm just like really fascinated by different cultures. Yeah.
So outside of the film and photography, what do you two do in leisure to kind of supplement that time away from your projects?
We're both like very avid, like hikers, fitness. Like we're not like, we're not like super into fitness, but like we like hiking, we like running, we like being outside.
Yeah.
We're
into like coffee and like breweries and stuff too. Like we like when we're back in the US, we like tasting different food, like I don't know, just that kind of thing. We're not really, I say it's ironic that I say this because I've been like addicted to a TV show, but we don't, in general, we like never watch TV or like I never watch TV. Like I haven't had one in a house or apartment in like 7 years.
Wow.
So I like almost never watch TV.
No Netflix?
No, I didn't have it for a long time. Right now I'm watching a TV show probably for the first time in a very, very, very long time. But
And what's that?
it's Poldark.
Don't start it.
Don't start it.
It's a podcast of its own.
Yes. But actually, we love listening to podcasts. That's one thing.
Nice.
We're super into podcasts.
Yeah.
It's easy to do on the go.
Yes,
Yeah.
we're always like, every time we're driving, we're always
Exactly.
like listening to a podcast.
Yeah, it's really, even I found like, because after we shoot a project, all the editing, it's different for video because Olivia needs to sync audio stuff with footage,
sometimes
but
I need
especially for me with
headphones on.
photography, like I'm just always listening, absorbing knowledge, like getting different people's perspective. And yeah, so podcasts are a great medium for that.
Never thought about that.
Yeah.
Makes me want to do photography just for that. aspect.
Yeah, because like as I'm working,
Yeah.
I'm just like cranking through podcasts, audio books, just
Yeah.
listening.
It's very. I'm thinking about it now because we edit a lot of videos and it's like you can't have anything.
Yeah,
else
you
going
can't.
on.
You
I
have
feel
to
bad
be
for her. I'm, like,
fully
sending her
focused
podcasts all
on editing
day.
a video. Like it's got to be your all in one.
Yeah, I'll send her podcasts like all day, and she's like, I can't listen to any of them because I gotta.
Yeah.
That definitely explains why editing video is one of the few things I can do in my life where I can zone in for hours and
Yeah,
not move
same.
and just.
Yes. You got to be like super, especially when it's a project you're really passionate about.
Yeah.
Like I could just sit there for like 7 hours and just edit.
It's just like once you start seeing like things start coming together with it, it's that like adrenaline rush or whatever, the dopamine starts like going.
No,
you're like,
I
"Oh,
totally get
it's
that
so
when
good."
you're like you get like a cool transition or
Yeah.
something and you're like, oh, this is so good, I can't
Play it
stop.
with the beats.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah,
Yeah, that's so true.
definitely relatable to that.
Yeah.
So for you, it's more videography,
Yes.
and you are more.
Photo.
Yeah.
Yep. It's
Almost
a good.
exclusively, I feel
It's
like.
a good
yeah.
match. Yeah.
Yeah.
We joke about this every once in a while, but like sometimes photographers. We wouldn't get competitive, but like I think it's fun because like I appreciate her medium so much, and she appreciates mine,
Yeah.
and it's. I feel like if we were both photography, it might be like,
might be a
oh,
little
my shot's
weird.
better than yours.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but we're able to
instead-
like help each other without like
Yeah, we complement
comparing.
each other
It's
well.
like a good compliment. Yeah,
Yeah, and
for sure.
yeah, and it's like this appreciation for each other's work that's really cool. Like she'll show me a video and be like, "What? How'd you even do that?" Because it's like so similar. Like I can appreciate the composition, the sound, the color correcting, and she can appreciate like my vision and the composition and like the storytelling of like a series of photos. But it's like it's different. enough.
Yeah.
You're not like stepping on each other's toes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
There was a video that was on your Vimeo.
Was it the I Am Low one, the one in Cambodia?
No, it was the one where he was in it.
the
the Faces of Places
video.
one.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
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 So I'm just curious, do you plan on doing more of those style videos where like
Yes.
you guys are actually
Yes.
involved in it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, ideally.
Uh-huh.
And even the Faces of Places project we've been talking about, I want to bring Olivia in a little bit more, and we want to do more almost like biopic vignettes of like people from
Like,
different
tell
cultures.
someone's
Like we want to
story.
go.
Yeah.
In fact, even in a couple of weeks, part of our trip to Asia, we're hoping to find some interesting cultural people and maybe No guarantee yet, but we're hoping if the opportunity arises, we can get some Faces of Places video where like almost like the I Am Low story where you follow someone's day, you follow their job,
their
and
story.
it gives a deeper insight into that person's life. Because like, I mean, a photo is great, but it's just kind of two-dimensional. Whereas the video can go deeper into the story.
Yeah, you can like hear their voice and you can hear their story, and there's just like it's like a lot more.
Yeah. So ultimately, the Faces of Places, we would like to take in that direction. But yeah, and also for just content creation, like we're terrible at vlogging. We're like always like, let's vlog.
Have you tried?
We've tried.
I feel like it's so hard. It's like you have to stop what you're doing like every 5 minutes and be like, we gotta vlog.
We find it
this.
takes.
What is going on, you guys? We're out here.
And like I feel like I can be like upbeat and stuff like that, but it's like hard for me to be. I feel like I'm not a camera personality, you know? Like it's really tough.
Behind the scenes.
A lot of people who do those vlogs almost create characters that they have to live.
A certain personality.
I forget who it was. There's one guy who did like a video every day. It was like a minute video every day. He was like on Facebook and all that stuff.
He's a travel videographer, and he's always like, for every second he was like highlighting a certain moment or something.
No, it wasn't every second, but it was literally like, that's 1 minute, see you tomorrow. Like that's how he ended it. But he was traveling like all the time.
Wow.
And as you watch through his videos over like a year or whatever, towards recently, I want to say like the end of last year, he hit this like mental breaking point where he literally like him and his wife were starting to like get at ends with each other because of the traveling, constant like editing, and like it was editing every day. So it's not like where you have, you know, a couple weeks or whatever in between a project. And so and then he's literally like, I realized like I need to take a mental break from all of this because it's so much. And I'm like, I can imagine like being upbeat all the time even when you're maybe not.
There's so many things like there's so many times where we've gone on a lot of trips together over the last year or so, and so many moments happen, and then we're like, we didn't vlog that, and then you can't go recreate it. We don't want it to be fake, but and we don't want to be carrying a camera around all the time, so we've kind of just been like, we just need to enjoy actually living life sometimes.
I feel like it's very easy to get in that mode of
you have to do vlogging for the right reason, and you know, we would like to do it for our own personal like journals and stuff, but if you're trying to do it for YouTube, I think I mean, you either have to have that personality, or
you gotta be like, it almost has to be like your sole focus. Like you have to be a vlogger, vlogger to like be really good at it.
So that's gonna take you away from other work, and it like almost robs you from the experience. Fully experiencing
for us, like any of the videos we do where we're going on a trip somewhere, we do like, but it's not like. It's not like we're not like talking to the camera a lot. Sometimes we talk to it a little bit, but most of it is just like run and gun, like montage videos of like stuff. We do like festival recap videos and stuff like that. So those, there is some intention, but a lot of it's like we just kind of wing it and then come back to the film like 2 weeks later and we're like, all right, let's see what we got kind of thing. And then we figure it out from there. So it's not nearly as structured, but still, like we know like, okay, we want to make a video on this trip, so we have to be more conscious as opposed to like, oh shit, should we take a video of that?
It's tough.
It's
tough to balance them.
I don't know. We haven't even talked about it. Are you trying to vlog this trip?
Let's try it.
What brings you guys to Seattle?
So it was weird. We were just at a bar one night, and we were like talking about.
Here in Syracuse?
It was in Phoenix, New York. Really? Phoenix, New York. We were with a couple of our high school friends, and we were talking about something to do with like, we were talking about work, all of our jobs and stuff, and then vacation came up, and it was funny, like him and I just got out of relationships, and then our friend works at the nuke plant up in Oswego, so he works like 7 12-day shifts in a row, and then 7 12-hour shifts in a row, and then he has like a bunch of time off. And so he's like, hey, like, I haven't gone on vacation in a while either, but I have, like, these long spurts where I'm not doing anything and everyone's working 9 to 5. So we're just like, we should let's just plan a random
just for
trip.
fun.
And I was like, so I have aunt, uncle, and 2 cousins who all live out in, well, now they all live in the same area, just south of Seattle. So my one cousin lives in Seattle. My other cousin just moved to Portland.
Sweet.
And then my aunt and uncle live like in the middle,
Yeah.
and they have a winery.
Oh, cool.
So
nice.
we're basically doing our own thing, but like seeing my family throughout, just as like a means of like kind of giving it some structure.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
PNW is beautiful too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it was like there was really no like purpose. It was just like, let's go somewhere cool, and none of us have been to the
I've never been
Northwest,
either.
so we're going to Seattle for 2 days. Then we're going to Olympic National Park for 2 days.
Yes. Yeah.
Going like to some hot springs and stuff, and then we're going to the ocean, and then we're going to my aunt and uncle's winery for like a day and a half,
Nice.
and then we're going down to Portland to finish the trip out. So kind of trying
love
to see a little
Portland.
bit, but I mean, I'm sure there's other shit that's gonna pop up. We're spontaneous, so
Yeah.
Mount St. Helens is like an hour
Yep.
away from the
Yeah.
winery, so you can literally see it from the winery.
Yeah.
So it's like shit like that. But yeah.
Cannon Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's
Yeah,
literally
Canada
it's
Beach
on
is
it's
really
on
pretty.
the it's on the list. We're gonna do
Coolest
it.
beach
Yeah.
We're trying to do it like a sunset for like the last night there, if the weather permits,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
Such awesome.
But yeah,
Yeah.
Tried to-
Love that spot.
yeah, it's very interesting.
Just super random question. Did you guys like coin the term BINDLISM, or is it an actual? So
Yes.
Not trademark, but it's
But,
coined
like-
by Google. Or
Yeah,
like we have
really.
used it so often that it's like
Yeah, we
It's
own
popped
the
up.
SEO
Yeah.
for this.
That's awesome.
for this word now.
Sweet. So it just means philosophy to a self-sufficient
Yeah,
lifestyle.
a lot of it's about authenticity and like creating that vision for your future and your lifestyle, and then being able to align your vision, your thoughts of that, and actually carrying out in reality.
Cool.
Yeah, and the word itself came about because our logo is a bindle, the actual hobo bag. That's the
I didn't know
that's
that's
the
what that's
phonetic
called.
like, word for it.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That's like the correct terminology.
Yeah.
And so like it all plays to the brand, but also it just makes sense in general because like with boho hobo, for example, it's like, you know, bohemian, but also like a hobo is like a traveling worker kind of
Yeah.
thing. So we've worked that in, and then, you know, keeping that bindle like stick kind of in this word. It's like, you know,
Sweet.
building in that idea of being able to travel and do your thing and
Yeah.
not be so regimented to what society wants you to do kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah, your sticker's on the roof of my van.
Oh,
I
nice.
can see it in my sleep.
So what is the next like 5-10 years plan, view, mission, goal, whatever you want to
Okay.
call it, for what you two are doing?
I think for 10 years, I feel like for me, I haven't thought that far ahead. But I'm more of
somewhere in that
a,
window.
I'm more of a like, I'll worry
5
about
days or-
tomorrow and like next week kind of person. I have maybe
Fair.
given a little bit of thought. So at least for the next 5 years, I want to continue being a freelancer and living this lifestyle. I want to try to travel and see as much of the world as possible. Like I kind of joked, like when I first met Zach, I was like, I want to see every country in the whole world. And I think throughout, like for like the past couple years, I think like that's still in a way kind of true. Maybe minus like a couple of the countries that are in like civil war or something
Yeah.
like
Or
that.
North
I
Korea.
think North Korea,
Yemen.
Yemen, like
Syria.
Syria,
Yeah.
like certain countries. Minus that, like I just want to see as much as I possibly can, and
You're
learn
still
as much as
young.
possibly can. Yeah,
Yeah.
So young.
yeah. And I also want to. Ideally, I would love to get to the point where. I'd love to get to the point where I could work for, maybe like right now, I'd say 30% of my work is coming, like the profit, 30% of my income is coming from the nonprofit work or the humanitarian work. And that's like one of my real passions. And then like maybe 70% is from the weddings. And I would like to move that. So it's more like 50-50. So I'm
it.
still doing like the like destination weddings and the elopement weddings and that kind of thing. And then maybe like 50% of the humanitarian, like, nonprofit work. I just, like, love doing that. That's, like, my passion, and I feel like it's just a very purposeful, meaningful job for me, because I know that I'm, like, when I make those videos, I'm, like, sharing a story that is going to be sent to, like, donors that actually, like, makes an impact in these people's lives, like a visible impact, so.
Yeah, we hit on his story, but we didn't really hit on yours as far as, like, your personal brand.
Yeah.
Would you want to go delve into that?
Yeah, I'll delve into that a little bit.
Do you want to just go right into, because you were about to start talking about projects.
What was the question?
You were talking about your, like, your brand, kind of, I guess, but...
Just your work.
Just the work. Okay, yeah. I guess I would call it, like, work. Just, like, the humanitarian work that I've done. Through the job in DC, I already have, like, a lot of built-up networks and connections within the nonprofit and humanitarian sphere, because that's, like, I mean, DC's like a hub for, like, all the nonprofits and all the government organizations. Right. So it's all there. So that's, like, I feel like where my true passion is aligned in, like, creating films that tell a story and, like, have function and purpose to, like, that can bring about change. So one project I did was for a nonprofit, World Hope International. That was the one I sent you. It's called Lowe's Story.
Yeah.
So we flew out to Cambodia. This was a team of 3 people. So I had, like, 2 college friends. It was really fun. We all, like, lived in a shipping container in the jungle for, like, 5 days working on this film. It was so fun. So we're, like, our just general, like, story process was to kind of go in. So we each had different roles. I was the DP and the director, and then Logan was a script writer, and then the second camera operator, and then Mitch was the drone operator, and he also did a lot of camera work too. So we kind of went in, and on the first day we had, like, 5 women that we interviewed, and we kind of tried to, like, see, we were, like, looking for 3 things. So we were doing, like, a mock documentary or docudrama where we, like, everything is true, but you reenact it with people that it actually happened to. So it's not happening, like, it's not like a true documentary where, like, things are literally happening as the events are unfolding as you're filming. It was, like, recreated, but also, like, completely factual. So we we interviewed all 5 women and, like, picked the woman with the best story who was also willing to be on camera and, like, had the time. So the woman we picked was Lo, and she kind of goes through in the film and just tells her story of how her family was kind of, like, homeless. They, like, their crops failed, and so they, like, weren't able to survive like, on the income that they were making. So they ended up, like, moving back in with their parents, I think. And when World Hope came into the village, they were able to, like, teach them some new, like, agricultural techniques. There was some sort of, like, mushroom farming. And that way they were able to, like, increase their income, and, like, the whole village was able to kind of, like, be revived, because, like, a lot of the people in that area were farmers. I think it was, like, mung beans or something, and that the mung bean crop failed for that whole season. So everyone was like, that's their whole source of income. So, like, everybody was, like, very, very poor, like, totally broke, didn't have money or food. So
how did the organization find them?
They've been based in that area for a while. I'm not really sure exactly how. Like, World Hope has connections all over the world. Like, they have, like, a headquarter office. So I'm not really sure. They just have people. They have, like, local people on the ground that know, that, like, are aware of the situations and stuff. And then they go to areas that they do, like, disaster relief and go to, like, the hardest hit areas of places. So
yeah, and I watched that that one. I mean, I watched all of the videos you guys sent, which we'll have them listed in the description, so anyone who listens can actually watch and reference to that.
I think that would tell a story.
No, but I really appreciated that story, and I was telling Kyle, I was like, these are really great.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great way to really see like what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's interesting. I've seen like a lot of different documentaries, but I will say, just not even because you're sitting here, but like I truly appreciate the way you film things.
Oh, thank you.
And I was gonna ask, when I watched the video, were you the only one like shooting on this? But now
primarily,
okay.
I didn't do the amazing drone shot.
I was gonna ask. I was like, you like drone?
Mitch
like,
got that one.
Okay.
He totally killed it. I was like, because we were working within the golden hours, like we're trying to maximize our time. So we were all three of us were like doing different things during, like we had to get up at like 4 a.m. to like go.
Yeah, that shot was epic.
Oh my gosh, it was so hot out too. Oh my gosh, I was like,
what
sweating.
kind of drone?
I think he had the Phantom 4, I believe, at that time. It was Phantom 4. Yeah, I think that's what he had. Yeah.
The best one at the time.
At the time, yeah. The Mavic or the Mavic Pro now is like kind of taking over.
Well, DJI in general is like
killing the drone cam.
Yeah.
I just got an Air last week. It's like this little.
nice.
I like it for the portability and like the travel size.
Yeah.
Of it.
What do we have?
Yeah. I just like a GoPro one, Karma.
Oh yeah.
We ended up getting that one because it's like you get the drone and
you
the
get the
gimbal,
yeah.
and it was like perfect with the budget that we were at.
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah, I
let's
remember
go with
that.
it.
I have a funny drone story for you guys. So this was on. Well, we were on the Cambodia trip. On one of our days off, I decided to fly the drone. I have a video of it too, so I can show it to you guys. So I tried to. Should I tell this story or no?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's fine now.
You can't get arrested.
Okay. So
They might not let you back in Cambodia.
I know. So I don't know why I did this. It was just really dumb. I thought it would be cool to like get a shot. Have you been in like a Buddhist temple anywhere, like in the world? Okay, they're normally like. There's like big pillars and there's like the altar with all the Buddha statues at the end, but like there's no walls on the side, like it's open. I decided to fly the drone in the temple. I don't know why. So this was like the second floor, and all the monks were on the first floor like eating lunch. I'm like, oh, I bet I can do it. It's fine. And so I like walked up to the second floor, and it was like setting up the drone. All these like little Cambodian kids like come running up. There's like 5 of them, and they're all like, like freaking out. They see the drone, and I was like, well, they don't like. There seems to be no problem with it. You know, they don't care. So I'm like, it's probably fine. So I took the drone off and like was like flying it down the aisle, like get this cool shot, and I got this awesome shot. So I brought it back. I'm like, I need to do it a little bit faster. So I like something happened like. Either the cord came disconnected from the phone, so I like couldn't control it, or because I was flying underneath a roof, like the GPS wasn't as accurate, which I think that's what happened. So when I had the controller going this way and I released it, normally the drone will stop and hover right where you told it to stop. It's like very accurate, right? And I did that and it didn't stop, and it just like kept going like straight into the altar, and I crashed the drone into the altar, like into Buddha's face.
Oh my god.
I have a video of it too.
Oh my god. Wait, so did anyone do anything? Like, I'm sure you were reacting, but
I was like,
were other people like,
oh my goodness,
what the hell?
Well, there was no adults around. It was just like me and like one of the girls I was traveling with, and then all the Cambodian kids. They were like 6 years old.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
So
I just went to I just like ran back, got the drone, and like got out of there.
Like
ran out to my tuk-tuk. I was like, take me back.
Did anything break?
No.
Okay.
I looked at it. I think the altars are pretty like well made, like made of like cement or something. I don't know, but it was like God. Just like. Do you guys want to see the video?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh man.
You got the video of the drone footage?
Oh yeah, no, I have the drone
footage.
It was like probably one of the first things.
So when it crashed, did it stop working? Like how?
Here it is.
What did it do? What did the drone itself do?
It kept spinning, and then eventually like the motor was like jammed, so it turned off. Here it is.
If there's a way you can send this, I would love to put this into the actual thing.
I think it's on YouTube somewhere. So I'm sad that there's no like sound.
Oh
but,
man.
So I like try to stop it like right there. Wait,
oh, that's so good.
That's a cool video though.
And then
so I pick it up and look at there's all like the kids.
Were they laughing?
Well,
or were they like traumatized?
I think they were a little traumatized. Like, I mean,
you can't crash into Buddha's face.
they were like, they were all like screaming and happy when that happened. They were all like, and then they like looked back at me and they were like, "What just happened?" They're like, "She just like disgraced our God."
Yeah, I'm wondering if they were like, "Did she just do that on purpose?"
It was not on purpose. No. It was terrible.
Did you use that shot in the film?
I did.
Before the crash?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see, but if you look at it, like, it's so cool, like, before the crash, it's great. You know, like, just boom.
You know, it's funny, too, because in my mind, I'm imagining you being inside of a building, not, like,
yeah.
open.
See how it's open, though? Yeah, right. Like, my idea was to, like, fly. So after this I was planning on like, you know, flying through the columns and like going around and stuff, but that didn't happen. I just got out of there. Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah. The drone worked after that too. It didn't break.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think you got lucky.
Yeah, I did.
Buddha was like, it's fine.
No karma
Buddha
there.
forgives.
Always forgives.
Do you believe now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a good question. We've like more recently had a couple people who kind of talked about more like religious stuff. Not saying that this is like a religious podcast by any means, but you've traveled all over the place, both of you. What do you guys follow any religion? What does that look like in your life?
Yeah, so we're both Bible believing Christians. Okay. So in fact, a lot of the, well, not a lot, but some of the work we've done have been for like either like missions organizations. Or, you know, might have some, like, we'll work for, like, different churches or schools in different parts, too. And, like, so one thing we like to do with our gifts is, like, give back to the communities, too. To places that are either, like, sponsored by Christian organizations or, you know, so, like, we've worked in different, like when I was working in Kenya, I was working for, like, different hospitals and schools and, like, churches in that area. So yeah, faith is, like, a pretty important part of my life, and it just kind of, even like I was saying, part of my project, just kind of like seeing the deeper, or like the humanity that we all share, to me that just points to a soul creator that's kind of like created the human figure and like the human form. And so that's kind of been like a cool part of the traveling, is just seeing all the different cultures, all the different religions, all the different, you know, ways of life, but seeing that, you know, there's a similar like form to all of us, a similar being, and to me that points to a creator.
Yeah, that's really
so that's been pretty cool.
Are you guys born again?
Yeah.
Born again Christians. So we go to, well, when we're around, we go to like North Syracuse Baptist Church around here.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Curious, so when you're traveling, how do you continue to like keep up with your faith, I guess? If you're like in countries that say don't have a Catholic church or whatever, you know, Christian, whatever type of church that you would like to go to.
So one of the things that I've really loved about traveling is like going and see. You'd be surprised at like how there is like random Christian churches like almost all over the world, and sometimes they're like hidden, like in places where they can't like freely worship. That's like one thing I've really appreciated, like coming back to the U.S. is like everybody can worship freely here. Like we have that, the freedom of religion, which is really, really amazing that we do have that. But like when I was in Kenya, I was like in this like rural town working on this project, and like on Sunday morning, there was like, it sounded like there was like a concert or something going on. Like there was like really poor quality like radio and someone like screaming like Swahili into it. And I was like, is this a concert? Is this like the radio? I don't really know what's happening. It like went on like for hours and hours and hours and hours. And like it was like maybe started at like 8 a.m. It was like noon. It was still happening. Like, what is happening? So I like walked over there. It was actually like a church service for the community.
Wow.
And so like, you know, going back to the whole African time thing, their church service is like all day. Like it's literally from like 8 a.m. to like 5 p.m.
It's just like a massive
They just
celebration.
like, yeah, it's just like a big celebration and like people are like singing and dancing, but they were like kind of doing it in their own little way. Like it had like an African twist on it. I thought that was so cool that like it can be like Christianity can be like expressed in so many different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Not just like the American, like I don't think there's like one right way to like worship. So it was cool to see it.
It is cool to hear like
differently.
worship in different languages.
Yeah,
Or
yeah, for
it
sure.
just makes it more universal.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
seeing God like
Yeah,
worshipped in different ways.
yeah.
But yeah, so you can join up with local churches. That's I don't know. I mean, church like here, church is like very much like a community. Like it's cool to just or it's almost like there's definitely like a social aspect
Right,
to
they do like things outside of the actual
to like a
service.
lot of our
Yeah.
friends will be from church and stuff because we all share the same similar beliefs and but yeah, like I mean faith, the one cool thing about our faith and my faith is, you know, it's a very personal thing too, you know, and being able to like you don't have to go to church every Sunday, you know, to be a Christian, right? So just being able to pray and worship, and I mean some of my favorite things to do are
Being in nature too, just being by yourself and being able to like pray.
Well, yeah, some of my favorite things to do, you know, like a lot of my traveling has been solo backpacking, you know, so it can be a very lonely experience. And, you know, so a lot of times you can find yourself just like praying. And, you know, sometimes it might just feel like talking to yourself, but, you know, just knowing that God's there, that you can talk to him and that, like, you're being heard or, you know, it's almost like it's similar to like a meditation, you know, just being able to kind of think through things and, yeah, so like it's not like always having to go to church on a Sunday.
Yeah. I wanted to hit on that because I think a lot of, at least people in the United States, have that, like, again, like that regimented society telling you that you got to go to church every Sunday or you're not truly following the religion.
Right.
And it's like, well, maybe that's not, like, totally true.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not true. I mean, it's important. Like, I think even, like, sometimes it's hard to go to church and, like, even just going to church, like we went to church this past weekend and, like, I don't know, it's just good to be around, like, a body of believers and, like, sing, like, corporately be worshiping. It's interesting.
I'm going to have trouble, like, articulating this, but how do you guys approach your spirituality? Because I know, like, with Christianity, just my relationship with that, I'm not born again, but just knowing other people, as Christians, they have their God, they have God, and it's almost like whatever work they do on this earth, it's all in service of God. So, like, how do you guys approach that with your work? And do you think about
it that way?
What is that like for you
I mean,
guys?
there's different seasons of my life for sure, and like sometimes you're very like spiritually focused, and like you're very like, especially when you are working for like a Christian organization or like a Bible believing organization, obviously your work is like very focused on that. And usually, I mean, just like candidly speaking, usually a lot of those things are volunteer, like you're giving up your time, and it's like this act of service. And it's not like we don't believe in like a, you know, works-based like faith or salvation or anything, but being able to like give back and like volunteer those services and stuff definitely puts it at the forefront of your mind. When we're shooting a wedding, I don't know, it's like, it's, you know,
Yeah,
you get
it's hard to
everything,
tie it in sometimes on the day-to-day, to be honest.
you know,
Like,
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you know, we were told to like do everything as if we're working for the Lord, not for men. That's a passage in Scripture, and you know, I think there's just, you know, just thinking about doing things not because, like doing things with the right attitude, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like if you're working for the right attitude, maybe you are tired of your boss, or like a coworker or something, but just showing. Which is funny because we don't really have coworkers except for us. But, you know, like...
I mean, but sometimes we get frustrated.
Yeah,
with each
but
other,
just
so.
Sometimes, you know, even just if you read through, like, the teachings of Jesus and, you know, you kind of
Trying to
follow
those,
Jesus' example of turning the other cheek or, like, living with compassion, or like there's so many principles that you can just tie into everyday life, and I really do think that it just leads to a more fulfilling existence too, of just being able to be more compassionate, be more understanding.
One thing onto that
Definitely.
too. So I also think tying in kind of like the minimalism aspect, I feel like that is really in line with, if you like go down to like the core, like especially like how Jesus lived his life. Jesus was technically a hobo, basically, if you think about it.
Like Gandhi, kind of.
Yeah, he was kind of like Gandhi,
traveling
around.
And,
like he didn't actually have a house. Like his feet were dirty. He was a nomad, which is so cool because that's like how we live our lives too. So I love that parallel right there. And like, in a way, a lot of the material like objects that we have on the earth are like I don't want to be like really attached to material things, because in the end it's like not really what's going to matter that much. Right. However, I do like, some people like have a different perspective where like nothing on earth matters, and I'm not like that detached to the world, because I really think that the relationships that you make with people and the conversations and like that kind of thing actually do make a difference. But that's kind of like, I don't know, does that kind of answer your question?
I think just to piggyback like off what you're saying, I think there's definitely like a spectrum of how people show their faith. And I think like, for example, Brandon Bray, who was on the show, he's very devout to like living his life for God, and like everything he does and is an intention for God. But I don't think like you necessarily have to go about it that way. I definitely think there's like I said, like a spectrum of how much of your belief you're really like projecting onto the world that you, or your experience. So, and I think like you two do it in a very unique way, and I like that.
Like bouncing off of that, I feel like there's some people that kind of like attribute every single small thing that happens to like a divine intervention, and I don't, I mean, that's getting down to like philosophy and stuff. I don't necessarily think that way. I do think that there's some like just mundane random things that just like kind of happen, like that comes with like having like a free world and like having free will. It's like I believe that like God gave us free will to do whatever we want, and that's why there's like,
so not everything's being micromanaged.
Not everything is being micromanaged by God. That's kind of like the philosophy that I believe. I do believe in like occasional divine intervention and occasional like things happening that are like actually by his hand.
Like you guys being together.
As we spoke of earlier. Just put that together.
It's too,
yeah, there's definitely providence, and I believe there's coincidence too, but there's and I mean, we'll never really know the side of heaven or the side of death, I guess, even like, you know, just what the whole meaning of the world is. And that's one of the things, actually touching back, like even just I think traveling, and even one thing that's been really interesting about traveling is just the exposure to different religions, and coming from a very like American perspective, like I never really knew what like Islam or Buddhism is. Like, of course there's sections of it here in America, but you know, especially growing up in like a Christian household and stuff, I never really, like, I've always heard of Islam or Muslims, but like to actually see what like a mosque worship service is like, or to see to have a conversation with with like an Islamic priest and imam, you know, or to speak to, like, one time in China I like follow around this like Buddhist monk as he was like doing all of his rituals. Like he had to like climb a bunch of mountains that day, or like up and down these stairs, and like do these certain like loops and like count the prayer beads. And there was like, I don't know, it was just really eye-opening to me just to see devotion in different religions. And
you can almost learn something from that too, like seeing other people in other religions that are really devout. Like I have some friends that are Muslim, and seeing like how devout and how like much they respect their religion was almost, in a way, I was like, whoa, like I need to step up my game in a way. Like I just had like this respect for them in doing that.
And again, it just kind of opens up your worldview and your mind a little bit to just different people's perspectives. I think that's a word we jumped on earlier, is like when we were talking about maturity, is just your perspective on other people's perspective, that empathy, feeling for other people, or like seeing how someone else how they're raised might determine like, you know, just their philosophy and the things that they believe.
Is there anything we haven't hit on with you guys that you wanted to hit on that
I think we hit all the points that I wanted to talk about. It's been so good getting to talk with you guys and
Yeah.
This
is great.
Yeah.
Do you have any
Likewise.
yeah. This is great. I mean, this is why we do it. We love just talking to new people.
It's fun.
Do you guys I'll let you both have an opportunity to speak, but just like any last words, anything that's coming up for you guys that you're excited about, you want to like let the world know about, any of that kind of stuff, any last messages?
Yeah, well, we're we may have mentioned this earlier, but we're going to Asia in a couple weeks to work on Faces of Places and some other creative projects, mostly just for fun, which we're both pumped about because, again, most of our travels in the past have been for work or travel or for like companies. So we're like
time to like
we're still going to work on our passion projects, but because we always want like some sort of deeper purpose for our traveling. Like I've actually tried a couple vacations and I hate them. Like I feel like I can't sit at a beach. Like
Same.
There needs
I'm
to
not
be
a
some
vacation person. Like either
purpose.
spiritually or like professionally or just like mentally and emotionally. Like I want there to be like a restful purpose to my trips.
In the beginning of the conversation, you said that you want to go on vacations for experiences. What kind of experiences?
Like kind of like I'd say cultural experiences or just like kind of all what we just talked about, like brushing shoulders with people from different backgrounds, different religions, different ways of thinking, and like
perspective
learning. Like it's almost like experiential learning.
Yeah,
like I just love that.
Almost
so
like
much.
life experience.
Just life experience. Yeah.
I would love to go on more trips or like extended like I feel like a lot of our trips are very fast paced, and I'd love to like go and live in
just
Paris
like,
for a month.
and like
or
experience.
Yeah, and feel like what
that's
a Parisian
like.
life is
like almost like dive into that
like
culture.
make friends there,
make
like
friends,
go out,
widen the community,
have a favorite coffee spot, like be a regular at I don't know, like something, you know, like be a person in a different place instead of just the tourist.
I wish.
Which we've had the experience. We've both lived in like different places a couple times. So I guess it's not like a foreign thing, but it's just like it's hard to find time to get that involved in a culture, but I would like to more. We were talking about language earlier. I'd love to like be able to speak with the locals in their native language. Like,
I didn't ask this, but are you both of you? This is a question for both of you. Do you speak more than one language?
Not fluently.
Not fluently, but we know like little, like he can speak a little bit of like Russian and like I know a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of French, but like nothing really substantial. I'd say like just enough to scrape by maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we would. That's the thing.
That's
we want to like
that's
go
inspiring though, because
soak it in.
Just for someone who's listening and being like, how could I ever do what they're doing? It's like, they literally barely speak any of those languages. They're not one of these people who are like, I can speak 6 languages.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah,
like,
no.
It is actually a lot.
It's inspiring for me because it's like, what you two are doing is what I want to do. And I think what we want to do with our brand. And it's like, knowing that we can do that without necessarily needing to learn
people
a
are
full-blown
intimidated,
language.
but
Another thing that popped into my head is like not everyone has the luxury of going to these faraway places and traveling, but the core of like why you guys are doing it, I think, can be found in your local communities.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Is because I traveled like after I left college, or I went to college in Ohio, and then after that I moved to Australia, and then I did the traveling thing for 5 years. And coming back to Syracuse, it was kind of a little bit sad at first, but then I was like, I don't even know what the other side of town looks like. And so I'm like, even the other day I discovered a new park. I think it's Schiller Park. I don't know. It's like kind of on the north side and it has this cool view of the city. And like there's so many parks and viewpoints. I mean, Syracuse there's a lot of geography to this city, like a lot of hills and stuff. And as photographers, we love like cool, unique viewpoints. And I'm always just like discovering new parts of town, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I never knew this was like right here. And even being back and forth to Buffalo recently, like you can just drive down Route 90 and you got Rochester to explore, you got Buffalo to explore. We went to Montreal a couple weeks ago. If you want like an international experience, they speak French. That could be a good warm up for you for not knowing the language. And it feels European. We go up to the Adirondacks a lot and the Finger Lakes. So there's like a lot of great things actually to see from Syracuse. That's one reason we love it, is like there's so many accessible locations. So whether it's in your like own backyard, just going to the other side of town, or, you know, driving
meeting
1
new
or 2
people.
hours.
Like you could go out and document and do your like filmmaking, just like your local
There's a lot of refugees here too.
Yeah.
I mean, that
Lots
would
of
be,
stories.
I mean, a lot of them speak different languages. They're not from here. Like that would be the same sort of like cultural, like brushing that, you know, you don't even need to go to those places. Those people are right here. Like go and talk to them, see like where they come from, like who they are.
Even what you guys are doing here, like you were talking to just like people are most of your guests from Syracuse,
I would say
local?
good percentage,
or like upstate New York. So like,
yeah.
but I mean, like even just like it doesn't have to be cultural differences. There's so many different philosophies, like you've even discussed here, that you can just get inspired by having different ideas. And I think that's a lost art in the social media age, is like sitting down and having a conversation with someone. So like no one has the attention span anymore.
That's definitely been one thing that it's been like a consistent theme with people that we've interviewed afterwards, is everyone's like, it's very interesting how much I was willing to open up and tell you about. For never meeting.
No, that's so true. So
it's very interesting,
cool.
but it's true because like on a day-to-day basis, the communications you're having with people, you're not really getting to really know that. Even like friends you grew up with, like how long did it take? How many years did it take before you really got to know that person? Sat down, had an in-depth conversation.
And we had one day, and we really know you guys. But like, I like to think that everyone has like a world inside their head, and like we're out here trying to go to Mars and like go to like other countries, but like there's worlds inside of all of us, and then we explore all of those different perspectives.
Totally. We all have different life experiences, and it's crazy.
You can learn something from everyone. You really can.
Sure.
That's the biggest thing, is you can always learn from someone, something from someone. Like everybody can teach you something.
Yeah, like have that attitude and carry that with you, and just be open to having conversations with people that are different from you. People are the same. Like,
it's
ask questions.
It's interesting.
Stay off the phone. It's probably like so important to say.
One of the most interesting and intimidating things about the Faces of Places project, and this is funny, we didn't even really mention Olivia's. She was working on a stranger project, and that's kind of one thing that connected us when I was looking at her Instagram.
Before we met, we were like separately doing very similar projects. I saw she was
taking pictures of strangers. It was just kind of like
just
people she met on the street,
total strangers we didn't know.
So one
taking
thing,
photos of them, hearing their story, and like doing the same thing.
One thing that's interesting, like with Faces of Places and her strangers project, is it built in this like, it was very intimidating to go up to a complete stranger you never met before. There's no context. They don't speak the same language, and you're like, "Hey, can I take your photo?"
Right.
And I mean, you get rejected a lot of the time. Like I get rejected probably 50% of the time, and that's fine. I mean, we're kind of taught not to talk to strangers.
It's okay.
And but like every once in a while, someone will like be like, and they'll invite you into your house for tea. You'll meet their kids. You'll meet their grandchildren. They'll take you down to the supermarket. Like I've had some of like the craziest, coolest experiences just by saying hi to someone. Can I take your picture? And it's just like a very, it's a very interesting like just little bonus from the Faces of Places project, is just it gives you these really unique cultural experiences. I think one time I slept in this old Chinese man's house, like on his floor. Like after like taking his photo, he like invited me in, and we hung out all night, and I was like, all right, can I just
I think it's very interesting, and it's something that I always struggle with before we ever did this, was having having a reason to go talk to someone, not just randomly going up and saying hi. And like having photography, you're able to be like, hey, can I take your picture?
The reason.
It gives you that like, it breaks the ice right away.
Icebreaker. Definitely.
It's like literally having an unlimited icebreaker in your pocket. Just like
it is, and it gives like sometimes there can be that awkward like first, especially if you don't speak the same language, like how much are you going to talk to someone? But like I'll take the picture, then I'll show them, then we'll laugh about it, and then we'll like do a handshake, and then he'll be like, want to drink with me? And then we go and we drink tea, or like it just. I mean, every story is different, and every person. Like sometimes it's just a quick like on the street. I see they're like selling bananas. I'm like, oh, that's interesting, culturally unique, and I'll take a picture, show them, and I'll move on. But sometimes it leads to like a whole day-long event,
conversation,
or like
day-long thing.
You know?
You'll just like hang out with these people
the
whole
day,
day, or
around
like
town
you'll
and...
smoke a cigar with them or something. Like
so
there's this
cool.
one. I'd never smoked a cigar in my life, and in Cuba,
of course,
you have to.
yeah, right. So I just like walk. So I was like, I gotta find a tobacco farmer. I want to take a photo of them like rolling the tobacco or whatever. And so I was like, just like looking on maps. I'm like, all right, it looks like there's a bunch of fields over here. So I just like arbitrarily was like walking through these fields, and I stumbled upon this guy's house. He was sitting on the front porch just smoking a cigar, like this farmer. Like hat, like just
so good.
Mustache, like perfect. I was like, oh my gosh,
This is it.
This is it. So I'm like, problem. I don't really know
It's
Spanish.
crazy that you manifested that.
I know. I was like, I'm gonna make this happen. Like, I gotta find it. He's somewhere like around. I'm gonna find this guy, and I walk up to him like, this is gonna be so awkward. Like, I don't speak Spanish at all. How am I gonna talk to this man?
Right.
And I'm just like very in my like loose Spanish. I say hello. I ask him how he's doing. He says something. I don't really know what he says back. I can't understand. And so I was like camera, photo, cigar, and he understood it. And then he's like, and then he just like waves me out and just starts like walking away. I'm like, am I supposed to follow him? So I go into his house. I meet his wife, his kids. They're like running around in the kitchen, like playing with their toys. And he sits me down at the table, and he's literally like rolling a cigar, like for me to smoke. So I don't think I think he like missed the point that I wanted to like take a photo of him. He was like making me a cigar instead to smoke. So he like rolled it, but he was smoking one. And I got this amazing photo. I actually have it on my phone. It was like this really good side window lighting, and he was smoking the cigar. It was one of my favorite portraits I ever took, but I just love the story behind it. Like, I got to meet this farmer.
Yeah.
Like, he, like, literally rolled. After that, I bought cigars. I bought, like, 10 cigars from him and brought it back to, like, support his business and stuff.
Yeah.
It was just so cool. I was like, what? This is amazing. Like,
that's so cool.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think that's a good theme, though, in general.
Yeah.
To kind of wrap this
and
all.
the theme, I mean, that is commonplace throughout all of these stories, perspectives that we're talking about, these ideas that we're sharing, is highlighting the human experience.
Mm-hmm.
So to you guys personally, what would you say, what does it mean for you guys to be human? What does it mean to live the human experience?
Deep question again.
Deep question.
This is how we typically end our
Ooh.
pod. The deepest of questions.
Well, so just to go along with the Faces of Places project, we're all in this together. It sounds cheesy because it's from like a high school musical video or whatever, but we're all in this thing. And like, I think the more that we see the similarities and celebrate our cultural differences as opposed to bash them or see it as like a barrier, the more that we see the similarities and the differences, the more we're going to have meaningful conversations with people, the more opportunities are going to be open to us, the more compassion there's going to be shared around, and the more like we're nice and like kind of going in the same direction, the less there'll be violence and antagonism and people bullying people, because when you see the similarities, you develop that empathy and that compassion, as opposed to digging into people's like differences or thinking it's weird. And that's something like, even I grew up in like a fairly international or like a culturally minded family, but like I remember those thoughts and feelings of being like afraid of like people different than me and stuff. And it just changed my worldview to kind of see all this variety of culture. So.
Okay, well, I have
Things
one
like
thing
that
I was thinking, but I thought it wouldn't make sense. So I kind of feel like it really boils down to like love and like just having an unconditional love for humanity and all the people that are on the earth. Like, it's just one simple word.
And if you could think of one thing that you could do to show unconditional love, what would that be?
I think hearing people out, like having like to be known is like the greatest love, right?
So hearing them, not just listening to them, but actually hearing what they're saying.
Hearing and seeking to understand. Seeking to understand.
That's a good thing, and let me just attest to Olivia's answer. One thing that she's really good at is, you know, having a very intentional conversation, and you ask really good questions to kind of get. That's what makes her a good storyteller, like a good filmmaker. Is, you know the right questions to ask to get to the heart of a story.
Yeah.
And I think that makes them.
Yeah,
feel
like
known.
you always said to me, like this is like more personal and stuff, but like to be like. The best part about being in like a relationship with someone is like being known by them and like being loved by them no matter what, like even through hard things. So I think that's something like
the commitment
yeah.
of good and bad.
Yeah.
Well, and like what she was saying too is just like being deeply known, like like she knows so much about me, like I can say
Be vulnerable.
Vulnerability.
Yeah.
So
getting people to a point of vulnerability.
Yeah.
But in a good way, not
Yeah.
not in like,
Yeah.
oh, you're vulnerable right now. Yeah. Well, awesome. Yeah, those are great answers. Where can people find you on the internet? This is your
So I have like a
shameless plug time.
I have like a social media identity
Yeah.
crisis. Like, you'll list these in the credits or in the
They'll be in the
description.
There's
All right, here it is.
amount of them.
You'll have to look at it in the description. But Faces of Places is where you'll find this is faces.of.places on Instagram, or facesofplacesproject.com is where you can find the Faces of Places project. The Traveling Zam, I have 2 of them. They'll be linked there. One's my dedicated traveling page where you can see fancy destinations. One's my just personal account. And Birds of Passage Co. is where you can see a lot of our destination, wedding,
the photo and the
and
video.
film work.
Yeah. So I have a Vimeo page. It's Olivia Graziano. It's just my name on Vimeo. And then I also have do my Instagram. So the Instagram is la.olivia.
Yeah, follow along.
Thanks for
Thanks
for coming on the show.
Thanks.
This is awesome. So there you have it. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of BINDLISM, a philosophy to a self-sufficient lifestyle. Be sure to explore other episodes of BINDLISM on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all other podcast platforms. You can find all other Boho Hobo stuff on Instagram and Twitter at boho_hobo_, as well as our Facebook page at Boho Hobo Lifestyle. It would also be dope if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Our YouTube channel hosts other episodes of the podcast in video form, along with other random adventures we go on. We are constantly documenting new experiences, so it's one way you all can stay up to date with what we are doing. Thanks again for tuning in, and we will see you all next time.